Indiana Championships 2024 is coming. It is this weekend. Ton of events, ton of great solvers. Luke Garrett, Luke Griesser, Brian Johnson. We've got a continuation of the Luke v. Luke rivalry, which only seems to grow as every competition we see them competing together in happens. Just seeing them, in the finals of a lot of events in 3x3, it's going to be pretty likely. I know we could have an upset moment. We could have a Jeremy moment where there's just suddenly like someone you don't expect in the final, competing. But I think it's going to be a Luke v. Luke thing. How do you think this is going to develop in Indiana on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, look, Luke v. Luke is a classic at this point, right? Like, you have like these Midwest competitions. These guys, they live close together. Their names are Luke, right? Like, they literally have the same name. And not just that, they have the same initial also. So you can't even just say Luke G versus Luke G. And to boot, they're just both really, really awesome competitors. Kind of showing off like different styles too, right? We talk about it all the time. Luke Griesser is this guy who's like, his mental is absurd. His work ethic is ridiculous. And he's like focusing on 3x3 only. Then we have I almost view him as kind of like the man of the people, Luke Garrett, who's like doing all the events. He's like, yeah, 2x2, your favorite event, one of my favorite events too. I'm just insanely good at it. It's going to be really exciting. If you at least like the last three competitions, right? We go back to, we got Swoopin' and Swab Oxford. Then before that we had Great Lakes Championships and then the North American Championships. If we go back those three competitions, Luke Griesser has the advantage. Not something I would have predicted going into this year. We'll see if Garrett can kind of bust that and draw the tables even.
Yeah, it's a good example of, there's the people that look at statistics and are the more casual statistic nerd fans, and there's the people that understand the meta. And the people that understand the meta is that Griesser might not have, the 503 like Garrett does, but when it comes to those clutch moments, it just seems like Griesser finds a way to make it happen. And if you've been watching for the last few years, I mean, you've seen that play out. And what's so exciting is that these guys again. You've probably heard me say it across many episodes, is that they both got to be focused on Worlds coming up in July. So this is big time. This is Indiana Champs, but this is just another repetition of a big clutch moment that's going to lead into the biggest clutch moments, because these guys aren't going anywhere. They're going to continue to be facing each other at high level competitions, throughout the next, hopefully, many years.
Who do you guys got between Luke versus Luke here? Or do you have someone else who could potentially upset?
Yeah, so I'm picking Garrett. He needs a win back. I would love to see Luke versus Luke rivalry go like 2-2, right? That would just be epic. It is his home turf. Yes. Indiana Championship. He is from Indiana. Granted, this competition is basically happening in Kentucky because it's just like, it's like on like one side of the Ohio River. And if it was like a 2 miles the other way, it would just be in Kentucky. You could call it Kentucky Championship. But yeah, I'm going to pick Garrett on this one.
I don't know, man. I would be scared to pick anyone other than Griesser because he'll podium on a high level and he'll call you out. So, I think come to these clutch moments, I want to pick Griesser, but I think really the thing I'm most excited about is seeing how the day plays out, is because I think Luke Griesser is going to be most focused on 3x3 finals, as he most usually is, and Luke Garrett has a lot going on that weekend. It's his home state championship, so yes, he is worried about winning 3x3, I'm sure, but also he's sure he's worried about having a great weekend. He's got a lot of events to defend too, more than just 3x3, and I think there's a couple other special events going on this weekend too that might consume his time and mental.
One name you should watch out for in that competition, Brian Johnson. Now, we don't talk about him nearly as much because he lives, I think, in Wisconsin, which is, quite a bit further away than other competitions. But man, dude, Brian Johnson is definitely legit. We saw him get a 4 at North American All-Stars also. He's also just like a really swell guy. He was like just really fun to talk to, and an extremely good all-round competitor. So who knows? He might have his work cut out for him, Luke Garrett, in that special event.
Brian Johnson this isn't a nobody we're talking about here. This is one of the best in the country and one of the best in the world. But I think there's a distinct possibility you could see Brian Johnson potentially winning 3x3 final easily. If Garrett or Griesser has an off day, like We saw like Garrett can have an off day. That's what Swoopin' and Solve in Oxford was. It was kind of an off day for him that Griesser exploited. If Brian is really on, this man can do some real damage. This man could go around destroying legacies and bringing his name into conversations we weren't prepared to have. We really need to consider that. Now, in general, if you ask me who I think is going to win, I'm going to say Luke Garrett, because he's the best. He's the best of the field. Luke Garrett is probably going to dominate and win most of these events. If we see Brian Johnson make something really big happen on Sunday, the Happy Feet studios, the Speedcubing TV studios, I should say, are going to be bussin'.
Just watch Brian Johnson, right? He's just a great competitor, just all around. And not just in 3x3. You should watch him in a lot of events because he has a good chance to steal away some of these podiums that you might think that some.
Weeks ago in Swoopin' and Solve Oxford 2024, Luke Griesser outlasted Luke Garrett on his final solve to secure his third straight tournament title. Both Lukes are set to lock horns again in Evansville, Indiana, where Speedcubing TV presents Indiana Championships 2024. Hi again, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us with the 162-time gold medalist, Dylan Miller. I'm Michael Rosenkrantz. Dylan, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm really excited to see this matchup. I think there's a lot of history to it, and I'm really excited to see how it's going to play out today.
Dylan, when you talk about the history of this Luke v. Luke rivalry, you see it time and time again. 3 weeks ago in Oxford, Ohio, it just came down to the final solve for Luke Griesser, to finish off Luke Garrett. And another big thing to mention in that rivalry, as teased yesterday, in the past 3 competitions that Speedcubing TV has live streamed, Luke Griesser is 3-0.
Yeah, Griesser's looking like he's in really great form right now. I was looking at his results leading up to this. Everything post-NAC has been really super solid for him. Every comp except for one, which was a Great Lakes Championship. He's gotten a sub-6 average at that competition. We saw at Swoop and Solve, he had 2 sub-6 averages in back-to-back rounds at that competition. So he's looking really solid right now. But we did see that Garrett earlier at this competition actually got sub-5. He didn't get any world ranking higher, but second ever North American to get sub-5 average. Really super impressive from him. So we'll see how it goes. They look like they're both in really great shape.
Incredibly impressive. Luke Garrett stays at that world record 6, as you mentioned, but a sub-5 average in 3x3. Always impressive out of the native of Indiana. We're set to kick off here in just a few moments with 3x3 semifinals. And as we take a look back at the second round of 3x3, which happened yesterday, it was Luke Garrett sitting in first place right now with a 570 average. So a little bit above that sub-5 average and just below 6, but getting a best solve of 470 in that, as we'll get the results here coming up from production. Brian Johnson, another household name out of Wisconsin, he got just about a 636 average in his case, but he's another cuber to watch out for, Dylan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw Brian can kind of perform in these instances at North American All-Stars. He got his PR in the semifinals of that competition, and that's in the Mall of America. There's people everywhere looking at you, and I competed there. That was a crazy experience for me. I definitely didn't get PR there. So I mean, yeah, he's got potential, and we also see Zeke just barely behind him, 638. Griesser's actually in the 4th place spot right now going into this semifinal. So. Definitely not what I think people would have expected going into it, but anything could happen. These are all very competent solvers.
Anything can happen indeed. It's going to be the 4 really competitors that you're going to keep a close eye on, both Luke's and then Brian Johnson and Zeke Mackey. But we can't go without mentioning a national record occurring. Ami Gaba out of India getting a 653 national record average. Incredible stuff from him, and that's got to be a good feeling for his home country of India.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Well, 3x3 semifinals about to get going on here in just a few moments. Dylan, what do you anticipate in this round here coming up?
Well, I think it'll be a clash of styles here, right? So I've kind of talked about this in most Luke v. Luke matchups, but Griesser significantly more AUG knowledge than Garrett. He knows full ZBLL. He knows Soon and Anti-Soons as per his cubing GG description. I don't know how much of those he uses or how like recent he actually finished learning all of those. But yeah, compared to Garrett, who's a much more like turning based solver, doesn't have as much AUG knowledge, but still knows, enough to get by. It'll be really interesting to see. I personally categorize them as Garrett has a much better low end than Griesser. Griesser still has 551 PR average from like about a year and a half ago at this point. So he's definitely on PR watch, in my opinion. Like I said, he's been in great form recently, multiple sub 6 averages, multiple averages within like 0.3 of his current PR. So it'll be really close. Yeah, and then I think Garrett has potential to get those really good low ends. Like I said, he got that sub 5 in first round of this competition. So, anything could happen for him. We could even see another sub 5. Who knows?
Anything can happen indeed. It's another chapter of the Luke v. Luke rivalry. 3x3 semifinals set to get kicked off in just a few moments, though. We'll step aside very briefly. You're watching Indiana Championships 2024. 3x3 semifinals up next. We're back inside Evansville, Indiana, here at the complex in the River City. Michael Rosencrantz, Dylan Miller with you on the call for Indiana Championships 2024. Talking a little bit more about this Luke v. Luke rivalry, Dylan. Luke Garrett is back in his home state in Indiana, so although that may be an auto bid for the Indiana Championship title, he has something greater on his mind, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he wants to win it for his state. I mean, I think Indiana is not the most competitive of states, like compared to California or some of the Northeast region as a whole. But I think he's a pretty solid lock for that champion. But I think it feels a lot better when you get the first place overall with it too. That's definitely I think what he's got going for him right now, and I think he's totally capable of doing this. Last time he beat Griesser, it was less than it was a 0.05 difference between his average and Griesser. So I mean, they've been consistently back and forth, and I think it'll be really interesting to see.
It will be interesting to see. We are just now set to begin the first group of 3x3, and we take you right away to Brian Johnson, the native of Wisconsin, in second place in the second round of 3x3 with that 636 average, and he's looking to kick right back off on a good note and increase his ranking. Here he goes for solve number 1. Going to start on orange. Pretty smooth turning so far from Brian Johnson. 496, a sub-5 single. How about that from the native of Wisconsin?
Yeah, this scramble looks really nice, actually. I think anyone else doing white on this scramble is going to really like it. There was this nice free pair on white. That was the first thing that stuck out to me. F12 looked really clean, really short here. And we have Zeke about to go on this same scramble.
Zeke Mackey, also a native out of Wisconsin, sitting in 4th place in the second round of 3x3 as he goes for his first solve. A little bit of a pause and a lockup there. A 608, not a bad solve for Zeke.
Yeah, this also looked really clean from Zeke. He opted not to go for the scramble with the free pair here, which is a little curious. Other than that, though, he dealt
on the red stage. You are able to help us
overall
judge.
pretty well.
Please come up and
not
do
the
so
greatest
on the
last
red
layer,
stage.
not the greatest F2L situations, but just turned through it really cleanly. Nice look ahead, no lockups. That's what you want to see out of him. Hopefully, if he can get those solutions a little bit more in order, then we'll see. Maybe Zeke is on sub 6 watch right now. I don't know how much you'll know about his current PR average. I think it's around 609. But I know he's aiming for that sub 6 goal right now.
Yeah, Zeke Mackey at North American All-Stars had a 633 average. That average sitting at 609 is his PR average right now. So then in the terms of the single, he did break that average in terms of the numerical value, but he is on a sub 6 watch. A good sign for Zeke starting out. Now back to Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson with a 496 to start his first solve. Here he inspects for solve number 2. Starts to look at the yellow cross, now goes to white, examining few free pairs. Going to go for blue. Bit of a pause there. Another pause. That one, 636. Not too thrilled with that one as he got a couple pauses throughout the second solve.
Yeah, most definitely. There was a few pauses here, but not as great as before. He ended up doing white, I'm pretty sure, but the ZBL at the end really saved him there. Really nice low move count one, good execution, good recognition.
636 for Brian Johnson. How will Zeke respond? Going for yellow cross. Turning pretty fluid here so far. Just crests above that 6, and that's going to be a 779. So 2 back-to-back. Not the fastest solves for both Johnson and Mackey.
Yeah, I think Zeke as well here just kind of got some bad cases. If you look at this like last pair here, I mean, there's not as great turning here. He had some hesitations, accidentally did a rotation, undid it, and this last pair is just catastrophic. It's not very great. Most instances you get at this don't end up being great solves, and then his last layer overall just .oll f perm. It didn't really come together for him there, but you know, he's definitely capable of doing something better. Like I said, there was just some hesitancy there. I think he could feel a little more confident in his solutions.
So second scramble, a difficult one there for both Brian Johnson and Zeke Mackey. How will they fare in solve number 3? Brian Johnson getting set to walk back up to his solve station right now. Brian Johnson was the second seeded overall at North American All-Stars, where he got a sub 5 single, I believe, which was 474 in that one. Here he goes for solve number 3. A little bit locky, starting with the first layer. Another big pause from Brian Johnson. He's going to not want this solve to count at 956. Tough one there for Brian.
Yeah, it seemed like last 2 pairs he just did the wrong solutions. Something I noticed about Brian solving a lot is he does this like look back. You see he does it like right here. He kind of does a look back, and then these generally lead to pauses. His last 2 pairs, he had one good, one bad. He ended up not rotating for any of these. He tried to make himself have all good edges, but it didn't end up working. So just a slight mistake and fumble here. Just not a great solve all around, but don't expect to see that from him again.
Zeke Mackey going for solve number 3. The door opens a little bit wider for Mackey to try and pull himself ahead of Brian Johnson. Gonna go for blue cross. Bit of a pause there on the first layer, turning a little bit more fluid here. Now as he goes for the last layer, puts it down with 867. So another difficult third solve for both Johnson and Mackey.
Yeah, I think Zeke maybe got a little bit in his head with that 7 here. This big lockup right here was the big issue. It looks like the last turn of cross he had some problems. He has diag pairs here. He deals with these pretty fine, but that BL last pair kind of gave him some trouble. And then this PLL as well had a lot of tricky lockups there when definitely you don't expect that.
Back over to Brian Johnson for his 4th solve. Turning a little bit more fluid there. 582. Good bounce back solve for Brian Johnson there.
Yeah, most definitely. Something I noticed a lot with Brian solves is when he gets a ZB, he gets a better time. I think his former PR average had like 3 out of 5 ZBs or something. This solve, good TZB, good recognition, execution. That's what you want to see out of him. Those are going to be the times where he gets the best solutions.
And we'll have a front angle replay for you right now as the top-down camera currently being fixed by our director of production, Tyler Rose, who made the drive out there to Evansville, Indiana. So a big shout-out and a big thank you to him for his hard work on scene. Here goes Zeke Mackey for his 4th solve in the semifinals of 3x3. Turning a lot more fluid here for Zeke. Bit of a pause there at the end. 705 for Zeke Mackey on this one. His average, his best possible average is 607.
I really liked how this solve looked for Zeke. I think this is what you want to see from him. We know he's a lock for finals, but this is super clean first two, three pairs. Even into this OLL transition, he's on really good pace here. Really no pause, and it's just again this PLL, not the greatest PL. I think it's V perm here, and it just gives him some problems. So I think he's in a good form right now. I think there's just some slight sloppiness there that you don't expect to see going forward.
Brian Johnson back up for his 5th solve. His best possible average, a 571, WPA of 725. Johnson looking to crack a sub-6 average as he goes for yellow. Big pause there on the yellow cross. Another big lockup. Puts it down 723 for Brian Johnson on his 5th and final solve. Average is going to be locked at 647 for the native of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I love Brian. I tell him this all the time, but these lookbacks are really going to hurt him here. Right there, you see on that third pair, he's a big look back to figure out what that last edge is. If you can help it, you can normally just deduce what that piece is without needing to do any excessive movement, and then he just has a bit of a lockup here on this PLL. So I think that's one bad habit Brian could maybe try to focus on specifically that I think he could get some benefit out of. But he's still solving fine without that. I think, with such high variance in this average, anywhere from a 4 to a 9 potentially counting, that's really hard to get something good on that last one. So,
and you see different cubers sometimes do what's called a look ahead, where they try and visualize ahead on the solve and what they're going to anticipate. And the look back for Brian Johnson might have hindered him a little bit. Maybe not to say that he can't do look ahead here, but you think if he might have just looked ahead just a little bit, those times might have been a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to deduce these pieces at the back. You kind of have to process, eliminate. It's not always 100% easy to tell, and it is definitely a skill that you need to focus on specifically. But yes, having some better look ahead on there would have helped alleviate some of those pauses on that last third pair.
Zeke Mackey inspecting his 5th and final solve. Best possible of 697, worst possible of 784. What can he do here on his 5th and final solve as he goes for the white cross? Little pause there on the first layer. Now going in for the last layer. Tough timer stop, a 765 for Zeke Mackey on that one. He's going to want that timer stop back as his average sits at a 750.
Yeah, not the greatest sympathy from performance from Zeke. I think he's definitely capable of better. He definitely didn't get the greatest situations, but just some sloppy turning here and there, especially on these last layers. The last layers were not looking great in this, and you see here even that cube drop at the end there. He's definitely capable of something better than 7.5 in this instance, but didn't really work out for him in this round. Just a few too many sloppy errors.
So a bunch of different scrambles that were some tough solves for Brian Johnson and Zeke Mackey going forward. Now, as you look to head to the second group of 3x3, it's the Luke v. Luke rivalry coming up directly after this. We'll step aside for a moment, but when we return, Luke and Luke clash against each other in 3x3. We're in Evansville, Indiana for the Indiana Championships. We'll be back right after this.
Cubing Life Academy aims to support the next generation of cubers through professional courses and coaching, as well as top cubers by fairly compensating them for sharing their skills. Use code SpeedCubingTV for 5% off any purchases at Cubing Life Academy.
This is Soup Timmy here with the new Max Park Cuber from Rubik. This is a limited edition cube. Believe me, supplies are very, very limited. And Max is donating 100% of proceeds to nonprofit autism support groups. This cube is exclusively only on Amazon using the link below. This is a great cube to add to your collection and you'll be help supporting autism awareness. Thank you for your support.
Back here at Indiana Championships 2024, Michael Rosencrans, Dylan Miller on the call with you on Speed Cubing TV. Dylan, we just saw Brian Johnson and Zeke Mackey have a couple of tough solves, but now you turn ahead to the next group of 3x3. It's the Luke v. Luke rivalry in semifinals of 3x3. Taking a look at some of their scores in the second round, Luke Garrett did crest that 570 average in the second round. Luke Griesser sitting in third place in the second round of 3x3 with just above a 6 average. Rather, in fourth place with a 649 average to be exact. Luke Griesser off camera right now is currently practicing, trying to hone in that mental state, keep himself calm, as this is a very imperative round for him going forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say the stream can't see all of Griesser's solves leading up to this, but even leading up to the first round, I saw him get some like multiple sub fives. He got a 4-4 in there. That's what he left it off on. You know, I'm a big basketball guy, so it's like last shot when you leave the gym gotta be a make. You can't leave on a miss. He leaves on a 4-4 on that warm up. I think he's feeling really good right now. So even in some of these, I saw he got like 4-9 earlier. Even like the last solve that you didn't really see, he had a bit of a cube drop, but he was on very, very good pace going into last layer. So I mean, at least from what I'm seeing right now, from a coach's perspective, I think he's looking really clean right now.
What's your best last shot, Dylan? A three-pointer or a half-court shot right before you leave the gym?
I gotta take my nice little three. I know it's like a free throw actually. Gotta leave on a few free throws then, but that's just my routine.
Hey, fair enough, fair enough. Gotta make it in the basket somehow, right? On the other side of things, Luke Garrett, he was the first seed overall at North American All-Stars, but quite a bit of a lackluster performance in North American All-Stars, but it's pretty safe to say he has bounced back and came back with a vengeance here at Indiana Championships.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, All-Stars and NAC wasn't necessarily the greatest performance from Luke. I feel like when I think about him, I've always assumed he has like main character plot armor. It's crazy. He's never done bad in a situation where he needs to do well. And that was the first time I think we've seen him not necessarily perform his greatest on a big stage like that. But even since then, yeah, he's definitely bounced back. Even, you know, I think it's definitely a huge confidence boost to get that sub 5 average in round 1. You know, I read the description of his video. He said that he felt like he was losing a bit of hope going into that. And I mean, I can definitely sympathize with some of that. And I know once you finally break that barrier that you've been going for a while, it feels great. And then everything just comes a lot easier. So
all the more reason why Luke Garrett is one of the greatest cubers so far right now in the country and the world. Just so fast, so efficient on his solves. And when you can break a confidence barrier like that, it proves all the more special for the moments going forward. Dylan, you had a competition in the Big Easy not too long ago in New Orleans. How'd that go for you?
Not the greatest results wise. You know, I think it's one of my worst performances of the year. You know, I don't have any more competitions I'm signed up for at the moment, so I'm just taking that as like a learning experience. Trying to figure out things I need to hone in on for my next competition coming up, January 4th of 2025.
January 4th, the new competition next year for Dylan. But I counted, though, just as I was doing some prep for the show, 76 different times that you've gotten 3x3, the win in 3x3 finals. Certainly something to be proud of. But we're going to turn our attention to the second group of 3x3. They were just called up by each of the delegates at Indiana Championships 2024 in Evansville. So we're set for the Luke v. Luke clash in just a few moments. Dylan, what are you anticipating in this round, and how do you think the scrambles will pay out here?
Well, I think if I was to say anyone was going to take advantage of bad scrambles, it'd probably be Garrett. If white and yellow are good, I'm kind of putting my money on Griesser. You know, Garrett is a color neutral solver, so that means he can solve on any of the 6 cross colors. So that is a big differentiating factor between these two. If white and yellow are bad and maybe red or green are really good, then Garrett's the only one who can take advantage of that. Griesser's stuck on these harder scrambles. If white and yellow are good in this instance, that means Garrett's probably going to choose them. Then the playing field's a lot more even in that situation, right? Then Garrett's kind of playing on Griesser's terms. So We'll see. I think if white and yellow are good, I'm probably gonna give Griesser eking this one out. Like I said, he's looking really good. The paces on these F2Ls that I'm seeing are very confidence inspiring for me. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
You saw it back in North American Championships 2024, just before those 4th and 5th solves that Luke Griesser had. You saw him take an extra beat just to calm those shaking hands a little bit for him, just trying to ground himself. And that's what makes Luke Griesser so good. His mental game and his ability to ground himself in these high-pressure situations. He's really starting to become really good at handling a lot of the pressure and clutching up when he needs to. Luke Garrett certainly has the speed and certainly has the skills within him to match Luke Griesser and even beat Luke Griesser. And we're just taking an extra beat for the next group of 3x3 comes up in this one. And just taking a look at some other events that happened earlier today, just before we went on the air, Clock in the second round of Clock happened, and Grayson James with a 285 PR single. So a great feat for Grayson James in Clock, in which Luke Garrett is also another competitor of.
Yep. I'm pretty sure Luke also got a PR. I'm pretty sure there was a good scramble in this set. We see top 3 all got sub 3 singles, which in this day and age is a lot more common than it used to be, but still very crazy. Garrett with 266, very good single from him.
It was a very good single from him. His PR single and Clock set up at 266. Here we are. Luke Griesser has taken his spot at the blue solve station here in Evansville. Set to kick off solve number 1 in Group 2 of 3x3 semifinals. Here he goes, inspecting the first solve. Looking at each of his different options, decides to go green. Very fluid turning throughout, recognizes something that he missed in 744. A tough first solve for Luke Griesser.
Yeah, this one started off pretty nice. I think there was a free pair here on yellow. Here, he's flowing very nice here. He cancels into that pair really well. This white 2 on last pair, completely unnecessary, and then he just messes up his OLL. Does the wrong alg, gets another alg, and then just massive lockups on this PLL. I don't really expect to see that from him too much. I'm sure he's probably kicking himself right now for making such a silly mistake. You see that clap there, probably not happy with it. But overall, I think it's still confidence inspiring how the pace was. Even with some of the slight errors.
Now here comes Luke Garrett. As mentioned by Dylan, Luke Garrett, a color neutral solver. He can solve on all 6 colors. My mistake with Luke Griesser there. He is a yellow and white cross solver only. So Luke Garrett taking an extra beat before he starts inspection, and here he goes. Luke Griesser with a 744 to start. How can Luke Garrett respond? Very smooth turning, a bit of a pause and recognition. There's a 705 for Luke Garrett on that one.
He also +2'd on this one, so he's actually at I think he's at a 905 here with the +2, if I saw that correctly. Looks like just some random silly pauses here. Garrett normally just gets by doing very simple things, but not pausing, turning well through them, and then maybe catching a few trickier cases when need be. This one just not very indicative of what he's typically able to do. So we'll see how that continues to play out. You know, solve 1 doesn't really mean anything, but definitely back against the wall here with that 9.
Absolutely, it was a +2. My apologies. Luke Griesser setting up for solve number 2. Again, he uses that yellow cross and white cross only. Door opens up slightly with Luke Garrett getting that 905 with a +2, including that +2 penalty. Here goes Griesser for his second solve in 3x3 semifinals. Again, very quick turning there. A tough last layer for Luke Griesser. A 713 on that one. Completes the solve, but just above and out another 7 for Luke.
Yeah, I mean, again, look, his start seems good here. He's transitioning really well. Griesser relies a lot on his fluidity here, and there's a few lockups, but nothing major that's going to prevent him from getting his good times. But this Ola Og I've never seen before. And then here he has this slight grip shift, assuming he's going to get a Y perm on for PLL, but he actually gets a V perm. So that grip shift, you have to shift back, and that just is a time loss there. So only really make those movements when you really are sure of it, what you need to do.
All smiles there for Luke Griesser, but a couple of uncharacteristically slow solves for both Luke and Luke. Now Garrett coming up for his second solve. Griesser with a 7-13 on his previous solve. Luke Garrett trying to get over that hump of that first +2, which resulted in a 905. Garrett's going to go for green. Very fast turning, a 443 on that one. An incredible solve from Luke Garrett. That's how you bounce back.
Yeah, we see Garrett's able to take advantage of this green cross here. Free pair into back left, really clean turning, absolutely insane. No, all it is oriented after first pair, so no rotations. And then he gets this nice OLL CP into PLL skip on that OLL there. So bit of luck there, but definitely influenced it. But definitely nice seeing him take advantage of that green cross.
Another sub-5 single rather, for Luke Garrett. Luke Griesser for solve number 3. Is turning pretty fluid. A huge pause as he tries to recognize, looks like a ZBLL, an 8 flat there for Luke Griesser.
This is the big thing I notice with people who talk about soon ZB. You may know it, but the benefits of it are very hard to see unless your recognition is pinpoint perfect. We see here this recognition is just not good enough to take advantage of these algs. This is one of the reasons why Timlin actually switched away from using Soon anti-Soon ZB for a period of time until he finally did full ZBLL method. But yeah, it's hard to see. It's really hard to master these Soon algs. Even if the ZBLL algs are good, the recognition is really what's going to lose you time. The standard Soon alg is so fast, it's very hard to make sure it's actually worthwhile.
Door opens again for Luke Garrett with that 8 flat solve from Luke Griesser. Luke Garrett a 443 on his last solve. Of course, his personal best single, a 344, second in the world in 3x3. And here he goes for his third solve with the door wide open now. Interesting scramble here on the third. A bunch of different pairs on different blocks as he tries to go for yellow cross here. Turning very quick again. A little bit of a pause going in for last layer. A 695. Not the greatest solve for Luke Garrett, but still not bad solve from him.
Yeah, this start, he was just a little bit locky, and then, you know, once you start locky, you normally keep being locky. OLL, totally fine, but PLL just had a bit of problems there, so hopefully turning can get cleaned up for his next 2 solves.
Here comes Luke Griesser for his 4th solve, trying to bounce back from an 8 flat. Another tough recognition as he goes into last layer, from an 8 flat to a 7 flat for Luke Griesser as he laughs that one off.
Yeah, obviously not. This average is pretty much guaranteed not sub 7, as we see best possible average only 719. Just some silly errors it looks like here. I really like that 3rd and 4th pair execution he did there, and then some lockups on this Pi ZB, even though the execution recognition was good. This is one of the main reasons why ZB is such a hard thing to master. You have to make sure your recognition is perfect and your execution is perfect on all 470 different algorithms. It's very tricky to do it consistently and perfect, and we're seeing some of those growing pains here.
Absolutely. It's so difficult to get your muscle memory locked down for ZBLL. Such a complex algorithm. But now we have Luke Garrett up for his 4th solve. Luke Griesser sitting at a 719 best possible, worst possible a 752. How can Luke Garrett respond after his 695? As he goes for green cross again. Turning very smooth out of the gate as he goes into last layer, a 660. So another solve just above 650 for Luke Garrett as he's sitting at a best possible right now, 599, worst of 753.
Yeah, we see here, I think Luke did a rotation and cross here, sets up back left first pair, and this is nice, but there's just too many rotations, too many moves, especially this last layer. I personally don't like it. It's like fat double soon into bad end perm. It's just not great, you know. He can turn through it, try to, but it's never going to be as great as some of his lower move count solves are going to be.
Luke Griesser on his 5th and final solve, looking to punch in a good time to put him in a good spot before 3x3 finals. Smooth turning, a bit of a lockup as he goes into last layer, another lockup, and that results in a 7-16 on the 5th and final solve for Luke Griesser, his average at 724 in the semifinals.
Look, even if this time isn't necessarily what he wants, I think what's really cool is the way he did these pseudo 3rd and 4th pairs. These are really clean. He said in his cubicle video recently, like he does this every time a piece is solved, and he does this with like a wide U move solution as well. Little unnecessary with the rotations here. He could have done it without needing to rotate, but I mean, still really clean solution there for those last 2 pairs. Nice to see that.
Luke Griesser guaranteed at least third place in the semifinals round of 3x3s with that average of 724. Now Luke Garrett for his 5th and final solve in 3x3 semifinals. Coming off of a 650, 2 solves just above 6 seconds for Luke Garrett. What can he do here on this 5th and final solve? Turning very fluid throughout, going on the last layer, and that is a 576, an awkward timer stop there, but nonetheless, he locks in a 576 on his last solve to get an average of 644, which puts him comfortably in first position. I say comfortably by 0.03 seconds to be exact.
It might be a +2, because that timer stop.
It seems like he's talking to the delegate right now about if it's a +2 or not. I think he's totally fine. Luke's just trying to be a very honest guy. He's totally fine on this. But I will say, like, it took a while for him to actually figure out what start he wanted to do. This is one of the main issues with color neutral is that you have so many more options. So figuring out what you want to do is a lot harder for you. I think it looks like now they're going to give him a provisional extra, potentially. Maybe look at the replay, figure out what happened. But yeah, the issue with color neutral is you have to find so many more options of what you're actually going to go for. Whenever he finally decided to go for white, which is something Griesser's capable of, he did his first pair in back right, and then he ended up doing his second pair solution in a way to where he got 2 free pairs for his next 2 solutions. So that was really, really clean on his part. Whether that was intentional or not doesn't really matter, but going into last layer, his pace is very clean here. We see he's already like pacing sub 5, potentially BPA here, and then this is the big lockup on A perm. This is the point of contention here, seeing if he was holding the cube while he stopped the timer, and it seems totally clean to me. I think Luke's just trying to be an honest guy, but seems totally fine. Should be no issues here, but just doing their due diligence, seeing if anything else needs to happen.
Very quick on the draw for that timer stop, but it did look like he got that final rotation in just the right amount of time. The cube was fully solved at the time of 576, so doesn't look like any provisional solve will be needed. So Luke Garrett getting first place in semifinals of 3x3 by 0.03 seconds. Brian Johnson sitting in second place right now at 647. Luke Griesser sitting in third with that 724 average, and Zeke Mackey falling to fourth place in that 3x3 semifinals with an average of 7.5. We got more Indiana championships for you coming up next. That does it for 3x3 semifinals, but up next, the final round of Pyraminx. Don't go anywhere. This is Indiana Championships on Speed Cubing TV.
Hey, we're your Speed Cube shop. We are your one-stop shop for anything cubing or puzzle related and have something for everyone, beginner or pro. If you want the best of the best, allow us to lend you our years of experience and consider one of our premium setup Speed Cubes. Our team of experts will dial in your Speed Cube by applying lubricants and adjusting the settings so that when your cube arrives, you're ready to start crushing your PBs. Have any questions? Our team is available via phone, live chat, or email to help get you on track. Tap the link to find your next challenge or upgrade, and enjoy what we and many others consider to be the best shopping experience around.
So where's everyone off to?
Bones, you're up next.
Bones is off chasing a good time, just like everyone else hopping on a Denago e-bike.
What about our game, bro?
Experience riding in a whole new way.
How new are we talking? Because I'm here for the exercise.
Well, there's a Denago bike for all levels. Increase the electric pedal assist to ride as casual as you want without breaking a sweat, or turn it down to make those legs burn. Go to Denago.com to check out our bikes and find your local Denago dealer.
Cubing Life Academy aims to support the next generation of cubers through professional courses and coaching, as well as top cubers by fairly compensating them for sharing their skills. Use code SpeedCubingTV for 5% off any purchases at Cubing Life Academy.
This is Soup Timmy here with the new Max Park Cuber from Rubik. This is a limited edition cube. Believe me, supplies are very, very limited. And Max is donating 100% of proceeds to nonprofit autism support groups. This cube is exclusively only on Amazon using the link below. This is a great cube to add to your collection, and you'll be help supporting autism awareness. Thank you for your support.
Back here inside the old National Events Plaza here in Evansville, Indiana. Michael Rosencrans, Dylan Miller with you on the call for Indiana Championships 2024. Just taking a look at the ads. Speaking of Max Park, some really, really big news coming out of Speed Cube Shop. Max Park and Speed Cube Shop have teamed up to drop and launch very soon Max Park jerseys. That's right, people. You heard me correctly. Max Park jerseys, as you can see right there with all three sponsors that Max Park has under his belt. You have the white contrast and with the park in gold lettering across the back. That is an incredible look for a different jersey, and some good points to go over. 100% of Max's proceeds will go to autism support groups, and he's working with the Autism Center for Excellence at Cambridge, the Autism Society in San Diego, and A Place for All Pieces in Southern California for the jersey. So all 100% of his proceeds will go towards autism awareness. Dylan, I don't know about you, but those jerseys are looking extremely clean.
Yeah, definitely. They look really nice. I think people will love to have them on. Definitely going to expect to see some of those at some comms coming up.
Absolutely they will. And just a brief disclaimer for that, some may be looking for the Max Park replica shirts. Those are not yet available on Speed Cubing Shop, but what we do know is that they're going to be limited to 100 once they are available from Speed Cube Shop. So it'll be a first come, first serve basis from Speed Cube Shop. 100 Max Park replica shirts available, so it'll be first come, first serve when it comes to that. Now, from 3x3 semis, we move on to the final round of Pyraminx. Pyraminx, the earlier in the second round, happened Simon Kellum on top of that one with a 235 average, a 1-6 single, followed up with a 1-8-8 single for Simon. He's got to feel good going into finals.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Simon is definitely more on top of his delegate duties than I think he is in terms of Pyraminx. You know, former Pyraminx single world record holder, actually current single world record holder, 0.71, 0.73 if I recall correctly. So you know, definitely this is his wheelhouse. Pyraminx and Skube's main events. I know he's been making a big challenge of himself to make the most amount of competitions in a year. I think this was about last year he tried to do this feat. He was hitting about 50 comps last year, which I think he did. He ended up doing more competitions than there are weekends in a year. So, you know, this man is a competitor through and through. I don't think this 235 average is necessarily indicative of his best performance possible. But when you go to so many comps, you get so many rounds. I mean, this is easy pickings for him. We'll see how he does. I'm sure he's not too caught up on how he does here. He's just ready to get back to his next comp, maybe delegate. He's just making a fun little trip out of this.
Luke Garrett not far in between that 235 average with a 241 average in that one. And then right below him, you have one of the delegates for Indiana Championships, Harsha Paladugu, who way back at Michigan Championships 2023, a sub-1 single, .98, which tied his PR single and was also an Ohio State record single at that time. So you can certainly see potential out of Harsha here as well, as he's a prolific Pyraminx solver.
Yeah, Harsha was really big in like some of the new method developments going on nowadays. ML4E, which is just L4E, which is the most advanced method that people use right now, but from different angles. You can think of this as like LEG1, but on Pyraminx. So doing what everyone does just from a different angle. Ginning Alex for this. He's been huge in developing stuff for Pyraminx and just the event going forward. I know he gave his document of Alex to Lincoln Zhang's coach at World Championships 2023, and so just trying to get as much information and resources out as he can. I know this 271 is also not indicative of his best performance. I would definitely expect to see something a lot better from him, even though he doesn't take Pyraminx and competing as seriously nowadays. I think definitely something sub 2 for sure is within his wheelhouse.
Absolutely it is. Harsha just practicing off of camera right now, as we'll get a brief look into his solve station really quickly, just practicing over on Pyraminx. It looks like we have a little bit of stragglers for 3x3 semis finishing up right now at the moment. All the results are not quite in yet, just a little bit of stragglers, which leaves a little bit more breathing room for Pyraminx going forward. So a little bit more time with 3x3 semifinals in this one, and just sort of taking a look at how the day has gone so far. It started all the way back with Megaminx earlier this morning, 9 o'clock local time, 10 a.m. Eastern time, here where we're based at, where I should say Speed Cubing TV is based at. They started off with Megaminx this morning, follow with 4x4, 2x2, 5x5 square one. Finals of Megaminx just about 3 hours later, before the finals of 4x4, 3x3 blindfolded finals, the second round of Pyraminx, and 3x3 one-handed second round, Skube second round, Glock second round, and now just finishing up 3x3 semifinals. Dylan, any particular results jump out at you from earlier today?
I mean, I think the big one that we keep talking about is Garrett sub 5 average. I mean, that's been a long time coming. I think it's great to see from him. Also, his 266 single, Grayson James sub 3 single, another sub 3 single in clock. But the big talking point of this competition is Luke Garrett's sub 5 average. There's been a big debate who was going to get it first, Luke Garrett or Matty-Hiroto Inaba. Luke just barely gets it here, 494, insane average. I looked at some of the results here. Last two solves both under 50 moves to solve, so that's very good. And all these solves were over 10 TPS, which 10 TPS is, to me, pretty much the standard of top level solving at this point. If you're not turning at 10 TPS, it's not going to bode well for you on a consistency basis. But most people will get like 4 solves, 3 solves maybe. You have 1 solve that you get lucky, PLL skip, whatever, lower move count. TPS is a bit lower, but Garrett consistently at 10 for that whole average, and that's just crazy to see. I mean, keeping his composure on solve 5, turning super well there. It's great to see him clutch it out there. That's very hard to do, and definitely well deserved.
Absolutely well-deserved indeed. They kept on saying, would that sub 5 average ever be broken? And finally, after what seems so long, it was. Just talking about Matty-Hiroto Inaba really quickly. Most recent competition was at Cow of Cubing Fall 2024. He got an average of 506, so a great showing for Matty-Hiroto Inaba out of Hawaii. How about a 476 single is his best solve in that competition so far? And Harsha right now getting a 295 for his first solve in Pyraminx finals.
Yeah, I mean, this solve just Harsh is known for his TPS here. He patented the whole terror speed branding. But yeah, here it just seems like there's a bit too many lockups. He's actually really close to a +2 here, but just this pickup wasn't super clean on these shorter events. Like, your pickup's the most important thing. If you don't pick up well, the solve's cooked. And we see Simon here with the 236, so just barely ahead of Harsha on pace here. But from my perspective, both of these two starting with not sub-2s means that the door is wide open for someone like Brian Johnson or Luke Garrett to potentially get a good time here if they if they're blessed with some better scrambles.
Brian Johnson sitting right behind Simon Kellum right now. Sort of shook his head after that first solve. Cannot see the time right behind Simon's timer, but didn't seem to be too thrilled with that first solve was Brian Johnson. Simon also practicing some 3x3 one-handed as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think Simon is trying to get more all-around results on his profile. I don't think Pyraminx is his main focus nowadays, even though he's still very, very prolific of a solver.
Here's Harsha. As you see his personal records, that .98 single is his PR single, and his average 173 PR average. So Harsha certainly has the potential for those times with that turns per second. Here he begins his second solve out of 5. Door wide open so far, with both competitors getting just above 2-second solves. Harsha on his second solve, another slow one, 299, another tough solve for Harsha. We'll jump immediately over to... Sorry about that, Dylan. We'll jump immediately right over to Simon, who is getting ready to inspect his second solve right now, as he starts a 296, so just under 3-second solves for both competitors. Dylan, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like both these people are just not as clean of turning as you would like from here. Here we see Harsha. I mean, his start is pretty clean, but then this B move really catches him up here, and then this U flick with his right finger, which isn't normally what you would use. You normally use your left index finger to do these U prime moves, but of course with Pyraminx turning being a little bit different nowadays, there's a lot more flicks and pushes going on, and that just happened to give him a bit of issues there. Here with Simon, Cube just seems to be deforming a little bit, and then this rotation and execution just not great. Seems like that Cube deformation there, that squish in the solve really kind of messed up his flow there, which is not what you want to see.
So tough starts out of the gate for both competitors here in Pyraminx finals so far. 3 more solves to go, but with those 4 now collective solves at just over 2 seconds, and those second 2 solve just under 3 seconds, it's proven to be a bit of a challenge here in this one so far in Pyraminx finals. Bring you back into the broadcast booth. Michael Rosencrantz, Dylan Miller. Sorry about that, Dylan. Go ahead.
No, all good. I would be curious to see, like I said, how Luke and Brian are doing, especially with these starts. I mean, these two definitely have much better potential to make something out of these last few solves, but overall, I think door's wide open here.
Harsha beginning his third solve, doors wide open, and all it takes is 1 solve to get yourself in a good spot. Can Harsha do it here on solve number 3? Taking a lot of inspection time, nearing that 15 seconds. Pretty locky there at 221, so not a bad solve, but still just over 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good enough. Already counting the 2.9, you definitely need something a bit more serviceable than that to make this average something that is competitive, I think, with the rest. But given how Simon's doing, we'll have to see how Simon's third solve is, how this is going to play out.
Simon getting ready to inspect his third solve. Harsha with a 221 in his third solve. What can Simon produce here? Simon also taking a lot of inspection time. Here he goes. Good turn speed, 228. So another solve just above 2 seconds, and the door remains wide open.
Aside from Solve 1, these two solvers have been almost entirely identical. Solve 2, there's a difference of 0.03. Solve 3, there's a difference of 0.07. So that first solve was really seeming like the breaking point between these two averages here.
Harsha getting set for his fourth solve. With a 221, his third solve. First and second solves, a 295 and a 299. Now it becomes crunch time for these two solvers. Here goes Harsha for solve number 4. A little bit locky there. A 251 shakes the head. Not a bad solve either. Just a little bit of a lockup. And Harsha's best possible average sitting right now at 256.
I mean, yeah, 2.5 is fine enough. There's a few lockups here, but turning much cleaner than on those first two solves, which is all you can really ask for. You know, BPA here, serviceable enough. Like I said, definitely beatable by some of these other competitors. But fine enough for now, I think.
Certainly serviceable indeed. Now here goes Simon, getting his fourth scramble. Both solvers have solves just above 2 seconds for each. Have yet to see a sub 2 second solve. What can Simon produce here? A little bit locky there on the turning. 246 for Simon. So very close to a 2.5 solve again. And Simon's average is just going to be posted here in just a moment. And now there it is, a 237. Certainly not a bad average for Simon.
Yeah, if Harsha's going to want to overcome Simon here, we see the difference between Harsha's BPA and Simon's WPA is 0.03. So Harsha needs to get a 2.2 to get BPA here, which is definitely possible. And in order to win, he would need Simon to get a 2.9, which is not normal for him, but we've seen him do it in this round. So anything's possible here. It really comes down to Harsha whether or not he still has a chance in this.
Absolutely. And you go back to the first round of Pyraminx, Simon started off with a 586, so anything can happen in this final solve. Here goes Harsha inspecting his fifth and final solve, looking to lock in his best possible average. Good turn speed, very locky, a 417. That's going to lock in worst possible average for Harsha. Tough fifth solve for him.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really went his way here. He gets to L4E at this point, and then just it seems like he messes up his L4E, maybe miss one looked, and then just, you know, once you know the solve's over, you know, WPA is already locked, then you put the cube down real slow. You're not really too concerned with it, and I think Harsha was well aware of that going into it. But, you know, Scramble didn't look too bad. It seemed average enough, so, I mean, seems like 2.2 is definitely feasible from Simon on this one. Still able to get BPA here, about 2.3, which is definitely respectable.
Door wide open now for Simon. For his fifth and final solve, has yet to receive the scramble. Now he does. Simon Kellum with a 235 average in the second round of Pyraminx. Door ever so wide open here to podium again in Pyraminx finals. Here he goes for his fifth and final solve. Good turn speed of 272, very close to a +2, but it looks like, yeah, Simon going to call over Harsha and Brian Johnson, both taking a look at it. Dylan, what do you see on this one? It looked very close, but they are calling it a +2, it appears to be.
Yeah, this looks like a pretty clean +2 to me. Really unfortunate here. It seems like Simon was turning fine enough. I mean, in all honesty, it doesn't affect the average in too big of a way. I mean, you go from accounting 2.7 to accounting 2.9. Obviously not what you'd want to see, but, like, it's not the end of the world there. The average is already something I don't think Simon was going to be too pleased with. So it's not too big of a difference there. It won't be the difference in him podiuming or not.
Both sub-3 averages for both Simon and Harsha. We'll step aside for a brief moment, but when we return, it'll be Brian Johnson getting his hand in the next group of Pyraminx finals. Don't go anywhere. This is Indiana Championships on Speed Cubing TV.
Hey, we're your Speed Cube shop. We are your one-stop shop for anything cubing or puzzle related and have something for everyone, beginner or pro. If you want the best of the best, allow us to lend you our years of experience and consider one of our premium setup Speed Cubes. Our team of experts will dial in your Speed Cube by applying lubricants and adjusting the settings so that when your cube arrives, you're ready to start crushing your PBs. Have any questions? Our team is available via phone, live chat, or email to help get you on track. Tap the link to find your next challenge or upgrade and enjoy what we and many others consider to be the best shopping experience around.
So where's everyone off to?
Ha! Bones, you're up next.
Bones is off chasing a good time, just like everyone else hopping on a Denago e-bike.
What about our game, bro?
Experience riding in a whole new way.
How new are we talking? Because I'm here for the exercise.
Well, there's a Denago bike for all levels. Increase the electric pedal assist to ride as casual as you want without breaking a sweat, or turn it down to make those legs burn. Go to Denago.com to check out our bikes and find your local Denago dealer.
Here in Evansville, Indiana. Indiana Championships 2024 on Speed Cubing TV. Michael Rosencrans and Dylan Miller with you on the call here. Dylan, it was an interesting round so far to start off the first group of Pyraminx finals, but now you turn to Luke Garrett and Brian Johnson here in the second grouping of Pyraminx finals. What can you anticipate out of them?
I think they're totally competent solvers. They both have averages that, from my perspective, are not indicative of what they typically average. I think they both have averages that are a product of how many rounds they get. A huge thing about these sprint events is the scrambles you're getting, right? Like these bigger events, you can kind of mitigate the difference between the different scramble sets on, like, especially these bigger cubes or whatever. So we'll see how they do regarding that.
And taking a look really quickly at the third round of 3x3, semifinals of 3x3, those results just got finished calculating. First two spots are Luke Garrett and Brian Johnson, but you have Mihir Narayan out of India beating out Luke Griesser by 0.01 seconds in semifinals. So, a bit of a shakeup in the podium. Mihir getting the third place so far in semifinals, bumping Luke Griesser and Zeke Mackey down to fourth and fifth place, respectively. So, an interesting revelation here, but a really big shocker in semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Griesser was really expecting this average to necessarily put him as high as he would have wanted. When you're at that 7.2 range, I mean, I think almost close to like 300 people have 7.2 like a PR average, and that's not to mention like everyone who's capable of getting that. So he's definitely not expecting that to be the best average he gets at this competition, of course. So it's definitely cool to see. I'm sure Mihir is definitely super hyped that he was able to do that, and maybe he can take advantage of some lesser averages from Griesser going forward, or just anybody potentially sneak his way up on that podium if someone like Zeke or Brian doesn't manage to come through.
We're just getting told by production right now that they are actually moving on to one-handed right now. So no Pyraminx finals here, coming up one group per final. So Simon and Harsha were the only group that you would have seen for Pyraminx finals. So from Pyraminx, we now turn our attention to 3x3 one-handed. The final round of 3x3 one-handed, that is. And right now, taking a look at the podium for the second round of 3x3 one-handed, it's Brian Johnson, Luke Garrett, Zeke Mackey, and Mason Langendorfer sitting in first through fourth place, respectively, as production pulls up the results here.
Yeah, we see here Zeke and Mason was pretty close, but we see Garrett and Brian are just a cut above the rest. They're about 3 seconds faster than third place, fourth place, respectively. These two are definitely the ones to look out for. We know Lou Garrett, very, very good OH solver, has sub 9 official average, if I recall correctly, which is very, very good. One of the best OH solvers in the world, and especially one of the best CFOP OH solvers in the world. We've seen a huge convergence on Rue as the main method for one-handed, but Garrett's still making it work with CFOP. Really great to see.
Absolutely great to see. Luke Garrett's personal best average sitting at 885 for one-handed, but we begin with Brian Johnson. In 3x3 one-handed in the first round, got a 1063 average. How can he build off of that? Going in for his first solve. And a 985 for Brian Johnson. Certainly not bad for a sub 10-second single.
From my perspective here, it looks like Brian did the most CFOP or free FOP solution of all time. We see here he preserves that pair, and then he makes that other pair, preserves that one, ends up not even solving his cross. He somehow ends up with 3 pairs solved. Now he finally gets his free pair. He sets up an OLL skip and then cancels into U-perm. I'm sure Brian was laughing because that solve is crazy. I've never seen anything like that. That was absolutely insane from him. I don't know how he managed to pull that off.
There's a lot going on in that first solve there for Brian, but able to escape with a sub 10-second single. Now we turn to Luke Garrett. Luke Garrett in second place in 3x3 one-handed in the second round with a 1066 average. So Brian Johnson edging out Luke Garrett by 0.03 seconds in his average.
Looks like Luke got a solved cube here. This is just a product of runners not doing their due diligence on that, but all good.
From a solved cube, we take a look at Brian Johnson. So he'll be ahead of Luke Garrett in terms of solving. He's going in for solve number 2. Working on last layer right now, a 905, an impressive solve there from Brian Johnson.
Yeah, a huge point here is we want all these edges oriented. We see Brian does a X cross in back right here. He does this F move. This is good. Now once he rotates, he has all his edges oriented, leaves himself a key L for last pair, and then he gets this really nice T2 GLL. OH specifically, 2 GLL is such a big time save. You're reducing so many moves, and you're getting so many ergonomic moves for your one-handed turning. So if we see more good 2 GLLs or just ZBs in general from Brian, I think he's on pace for a very good average here. Already counting 9.8, which is good for him.
Here's Luke Garrett, now going for his first solve of one-handed. And this time again, he gets another solved cube. 2 solved cubes in a row. What is going on?
If I was a competitor, this would maybe be throwing me off. First one, that's chill. We get the instant replay here on the solved cube. We see the hands up reaction. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm a little thrown off here, definitely.
He hasn't done solve? Yeah.
Luke Garrett says, why oh why must it happen not once but twice in a row now? So Luke Garrett a little bit behind, but he is nothing that he can do but just laugh it off. But as a competitor, you receive 2 solved cubes in a row. You ought to think that throws off a little bit of the mental game and the preparation standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you prepare for something, and then you prepare for a test, and then he's like, okay, actually, it's tomorrow. And then it gets pushed back again, you know? It really throws off your rhythm there, you know? You're preparing for this, you're taking a deep rest, and then then you did it all for nothing, you know? Hopefully we have a scrambled cube this time.
And it looks like they're going to take a brief hiatus of giving it Brian Johnson his cube so Luke can catch up. Third time is the charm. He does not receive a solve cube this time, and Luke Garrett will finally start his 5 solves with solve number 1. Lots of table action from Luke Garrett on this first solve. Picks up the cube at the end. A frustrated timer stop. 10:35. Tough one there to start for Luke.
Yeah, we know Luke, known for his table abuse. He seems like he did a green cross here. Looks like he made a little block. This solve is just indicative of him. Standard stuff, good turning, nice R-Eugen, OLL, and then it seems here PLL was the main point of contention here. This is a very nice U-perm here, but just a slight mistake there, and then frustrated himself for that silly little error on PLL.
Back to Brian Johnson. Now going with solve number 3, Luke Garrett only has one solve at 1035. Brian Johnson with both a 985 and a 905. And on his third solve here, a little bit longer, 1158. A tough one there for Brian.
I feel like Brian has to be kicking himself right now because this start looked amazing here. We had that edge, and then it seems like he was confused as to why his cross wasn't done. He tries to incorporate this pair into his solution as maybe he did on that first solve, getting away with it there, but doesn't seem to work out here. Does a Y2, RUGen last pair. It just kind of didn't come together here. Kind of lucky that he got this U-perm at the end here. If not, we might have been seeing like a 12 or something. So, you know, I think it was just a silly error, planning mistake here. Definitely don't hope to see that from him again, especially because potentially he's on PR pace here. If he counts this 9-0, I mean, he's already at that 9-4 mark that he's got for PR. So, and it's definitely within the realm of possibility.
That's the second consecutive round that Brian Johnson now has gotten an 1158 solve. It was his 5th and final solve in the second round of one-handed, and now here in one-handed finals, his 3rd solve was an 1158. So tough bit of luck there for Brian Johnson. Now we return to Luke Garrett, trying to break out of a slump of a 1035 first solve. Tough pickup right out of the gate. Didn't start turning until maybe about a second or a second and a half. And that one at 10:09 for Luke. So both 10-second solves for the native of Indiana.
It seemed like he took a second during inspection to kind of figure out what to do here. He had 2 free pairs here on blue, and once you get more than 1 free pair, it's really tricky. Your movement's very restricted on what moves you can do, and in very certain instances, it's actually worth it. But I mean, here he gets through it fine. 10-0, that's definitely serviceable enough for him. But with that start, you would maybe expect to see something a little bit better. Hopefully a sub 10 under his belt, especially for someone of Luke's caliber. But definitely something you can still work with.
Luke Garrett sub 10 came in the second round of one-handed with a 791 single. That was his 5th and final solve. Now an interesting scramble here on solve number 4 for Brian Johnson. Might have a few free pairs here. Already working on the last layer is Brian Johnson, trying to get a sub 10. He cannot. A 1076. A frustrating feeling for Brian Johnson after that one, as that scramble looked to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like there was a lot of big blocks here. I don't know how well Brian was able to take advantage of these. I know in that last pair he's able to avoid a dot case with slightly less moves. Maybe he didn't feel comfortable doing that in a one-handed setting. But again, here, I mean, every last layer from Brian has either been something into U-perm, which is just very clean, or like 2 GLL here. So he's getting quite lucky on these last layers. Just some slight execution errors on F2L, maybe some planning mistakes.
Brian Johnson's best possible, a 989. Worst possible, a 1073. Here goes Luke Garrett with his 3rd solve in the final round of 3x3 one-handed. A little bit of a pause there going into last layer. Picks it up for the last layer, an 1148. Tough stuff for Luke Garrett, as that's now his first solve over 11 seconds in this round.
Yeah, I mean, Luke, very turning dependent solver. And then on this last layer, or last F2L pair, he gets this ZBLS case where he tries to get edges oriented. Doesn't seem like it worked out in his favor, and then he gets soon into V-perm. It's just not good cases for his last few situations, and definitely doesn't seem happy with the way this average has been kicking off.
Tough round for Luke Garrett. He still has 2 solves remaining. We turn to Brian Johnson, who has 1 solve remaining. Best possible average of 989. Looking for that sub 10 average in the finals of 3x3 one-handed. Not nearly as much table abuse from Brian Johnson. A 948. A really good final solve for Brian Johnson, as that's going to lock in a pretty respectable average for the native of Wisconsin.
Yeah, just barely off that sub 10 mark here, 10:03. What I thought was really interesting was these last 2 pairs. He does this interesting insert. What I wanted to see him do was on that specific OLL case, you can do a slight variation on the ending there and actually force U-perm. I don't know how viable it is because I use it for 3x3, but on one-handed, it will require a rotation, which isn't normally as big of a deal, and it's generally RUF gen, so definitely something that he could have explored. Maybe could have gotten him just barely under that sub 10 mark on that average, but still a respectable solve nonetheless.
Ryan Johnson getting a 1063 average in the second round of one-handed, now with a 1003 in the finals of one-handed. Luke Garrett, as you see his personal records there, a 648 PB single and an 885 PR average. So you certainly know that Luke Garrett has the potential for those kinds of times. Here he goes on solve number 4. Turning looks to be smooth out of the gate. A little bit of a pause there going into last layer. And this one's going to be another one that's 11:24 for Luke Garrett, having a tough time getting that sub 10 second solve, as his best possible is now at 10:56.
Yeah, I mean, uncharacteristic performance from Luke here. I'm sure he's definitely not happy with it. It just seems like he's turning fine, potentially turning not as well as you would like, and just some rough cases, rough executions, just kind of sloppy solve all around. Just not what you want to see from him.
Off of stream, Luke Griesser with a PR average in one-handed finals of 1234. So Luke Griesser wasn't on stream during those solves, but a very impressive average for Luke Griesser, as that's a new personal best for him.
Yeah, Griesser not known for his OH solving, but glad to see that nonetheless.
First bit of results for one-handed finals starting to come in. Brian Johnson, as of now, sitting in first place with that 1003 average. Luke Garrett on his 5th and final solve, a 1093 for Luke Garrett. So unable to break these sub 10 second single solves for him, and he's going to sit an average of 1084 that appears to be.
Yeah, I mean, just like we talked about, not a super clean average from Luke here. Like I said, not great cases, not great executions. Maybe could have taken better advantage of certain scrambles. It seemed like these scrambles were generally pretty nice. Maybe that's where most of his frustration lies. Feeling like these have potential and not being able to capitalize on it. But, you know, we know Garrett is capable of much better than that. And, yeah, potentially getting the solved cube twice in a row really threw off his rhythm there. Could have been one of the factors leading to that average.
No doubt. You look back to that 2 solved cubes in a row for Luke Garrett. Might have thrown off his mental game. So a big revelation there for Luke Garrett, as it's a tough round of 3x3 one-handed finals for him. More results are coming back in, but we'll take a look back to those 2 solved cubes. There's the first one. Understandably a little bit frustrated, thinking, well, that kind of stuff happens here. Sometimes you'll get a solved cube here and there, but then when you see it happen a second time, you think to yourself, oh goodness, come on now, where's the cube that's not solved? So you have no doubt in your mind that just throws off Luke Garrett's rhythm there going into that one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't think of a time I've gotten 2 solved cubes in a row, and I've been to like over 100 competitions. Luke's been to more than me, probably like close to 200, 250 around there, and I'm sure he's probably only had that happen maybe one other time. So that'll definitely throw you off for sure. It's not something you see every day.
Definitely not something you see every day, but a tough round of 3x3 one-handed finals for Luke Garrett. More results are starting to come in. Nate Abaleda getting a PR average himself in one-handed finals with a 1509. So a couple different people breaking their personal best averages. Awesome to see Zeke Mackey right now sitting in 3rd place for the time being for one-handed finals. And the next group, I believe, just got called up for our next event, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Dylan, should be Skube finals here coming up.
Yep, looks like it's Skube finals. We have Simon Kellum and Brian Johnson on the stream stages. Brian, former North American record holder for Skube average. This was a long time ago. I had a friend, Riley Nord, who was fighting Brian for Skube record at the time. That's where I first heard of Brian. I wasn't too into the scene, but now I'm really cool friends with him, and looking back at it, it's funny to see that I knew him as the Skube guy. He's not a big Scuber anymore compared to kind of what people are capable of now. He's not too super tippy top level, but for this competition, Simon Bryan matchup is going to be interesting. I mean, these two are roommates, like they're best buds. So I mean, it'll be fun to see. Probably some friendly competition amongst these two. Hoping to see some good results out of both of them.
No doubt some friendly competition indeed. We'll step aside really briefly, but when we return, it's the finals of Skube here in Evansville, Indiana. Back with more on Speedcubing TV.
Cubing Life Academy aims to support the next generation of cubers through professional courses and coaching, as well as top cubers by fairly compensating them for sharing their skills. Use code SpeedCubingTV for 5% off any purchases at Cubing Life Academy.
This is Soup Timmy here with the new Max Park Cuber from Rubik. This is a limited edition cube. Believe me, supplies are very, very limited. And Max is donating 100% of proceeds to nonprofit autism support groups. This cube is exclusively only on Amazon using the link below. This is a great cube to add to your collection, and you'll be help supporting autism awareness. Thank you for your support.
Indiana Championships 2024, the finale of a 3-day competition in Evansville, Indiana. We're set to begin Skube finals here in just a moment. Michael Rosencrans, Dylan Miller with you on the call on Speedcubing TV. Dylan, it's been a great 3 days here so far, but now you're starting to get down to crunch time when it really matters. You're starting to see podiums happen, but you inch closer and closer to those anticipated 3x3 finals.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we have. I'm sure this is on most of these competitors' minds. I mean, we see Garrett in the background there. Brian's also a very well-known 3x3 solver. These events, at least in my experience, are just something to kind of take the edge off. I mean, some people Scube's like their main deal, and if that's where you got all your pressure on, then that's you. But I think Brian, I don't know how much he cares about Skube necessarily. It looks like he's practicing 2x2 instead here. I know he cares a lot more about 2x2 from my perspective. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll definitely still have some fun results coming up in these finals.
Brian Johnson, a .69 2x2 PR single and a 118 PR average. Really prolific times for Brian Johnson in 2x2, but you turn to Skube in this one, and in the second round of Skube, which happened earlier today, you have Simon Kellum at the top right now, just under a 3-second average, 299. Then you have Brian Johnson at a 339 here as Simon starts his first solve of Skube with a 228 here, so not a bad start for Simon.
No, most definitely. I think this is quite good actually. 2-2. I know Simon's been focusing more on Skube. Looks like he one-looked this one. I didn't see any case recognition pauses there. And it's really good execution. Skube is the event with like the weirdest turning that's like event based, maybe except for clock. And mastering Skube turning is a huge part of getting your good results.
Here's Brian Johnson at a 339 average in the second round of Skube. Really big pause there after that first set of turns, a 338. That's very close, but looking at the top-down angle, looks good to me. So a 338 locked in for Brian Johnson.
Video.
and some extra words just being discussed by delegates. They just want to make sure that they get the times correctly as Harsha Paladugu comes over to check that solve for Brian Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Simon's the one calling this. I mean, Simon is one of the delegates of this competition. From my perspective, looks like a +2. I hate to say that to my boy, but you know, looks like a pretty cut and dry 5-3. Maybe it's different from their perspective. But yeah, what we saw on Brian's solve there was just he didn't want to look that solve, which means he didn't see his entire solution in inspection, and that's where that big pause was. It was a recognition of his last algorithm to solve the Skube, and that's what Simon probably made up his time on, because he looked like he didn't need to do that big pause to recognize here. So we see Brian solves his layer, tries to recognize the case, bit of a hesitation there, misrecognized, and then got his execution, and just looks like a slight +2.
Yeah, appears to be a +2. From my angle that I saw, looked decent from the front angle, but as you look at the top-down angle, that gives you a clear and cut picture of that +2. So Brian Johnson, more than likely locking in a 538 to start off his solving of Skube.
I'm hearing from Brian, apparently the issue was that the judge bumped the table. He thought it was good before the judge bumped the table. So I've had this happen before, where it looks clean, it's close, you need delegate discretion, and then there's some interference, you know, maybe someone hits the table, you know, the other competitor maybe hits the table, something happens, it interferes with the state of the cube, and now it's impossible to make a judgment on what the state actually was. So it seems like they're going to be giving a provisional extra to Brian, just in case there was some unfortunate circumstances surrounding the solve that couldn't be ruled on.
As they should with that potential table interference. So Brian Johnson will get a provisional solve as his cube is coming back to the solve station right now, dropped off by Harsha. So Brian with a provisional solve here to begin the Skube finals. Interesting scramble. Here he begins his provisional. And a 433 on that provisional solve, so not taking the best of opportunities on that provisional.
Yeah, this is an unfortunate circumstance of just the way we run WCA competitions, right? Nothing in Brian's control happened to where he needed to get this solved. This was entirely out of his control. Someone bumped the table, potentially. This is the reason for it. And now he's getting either penalized / rewarded for this thing outside of his control. Maybe he gets an easier scramble. Maybe he gets a harder scramble. In this case, it seemed like harder. And that's one unfair instance of competition that is something we need to be sorted.
Tough start for Brian Johnson. Now here goes Simon on his second solve. A 145. What a job by Simon Kellum. My goodness.
It seems like he's, this seems like just a very low move count. I mean, honestly, great solution from Simon there. He seems very pleased with that. I mean, the solution looked like a lot less moves than it actually was, but I think that's just a testament to his turning and execution there. Seems like very good execution from his perspective. And now Brian's looking over, probably thinking, I wonder what that scramble looks like coming up.
It'll be interesting to see how he views the second scramble. A tough task at hand with Simon just getting a 145 single. How can Brian Johnson respond? Tough second solve for Brian Johnson. A soft stop of the timer, 673 for the native of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, hate to see this from Brian. I mean, like I said, that first solve also probably throws you off, right? Seeing the provisional needing to happen, stuff out of your control. You see Simon get that 1-4, you're probably thinking there's got to be something that I can find here, and then just doesn't seem like he's able to find it. Seems like he even messed up his alg, had to do another alg there, and I know that's pure pie. That's not a great alg that you want to be doing on Skube. So unfortunate to see from Brian. Hopefully he can turn this around, make something out of that 4-3 counting already.
Brian Johnson had a 603 time in the second round of Skube. So another 6 time here for Brian Johnson. Now we go to Simon for solve number 3. What can he produce off of a 145 single? Very fast turning speed. Lots of rotations. A 272 for Simon. Lots of rotations there on that one. Still not a bad solve for Simon.
Yeah, I mean, 2-7, this seems really solid. I mean, his layer execution here, very clean, and then he just has a bit of a pause. So it seems like the extra rotation was because he rotated to the wrong side to execute his next algorithm. So you do a rotation, it's on the wrong side, then you need to do 2 rotations to make up for the wrong one you did. Just a slight time loss there, but that solve could have easily been closer to low 2 than high 2, which is slightly unfortunate to see.
Brian Johnson for his 3rd solve in Skube. Lots of rotations himself. A 268. That's how you get back on the right foot for Brian Johnson.
Yep, seems like similar solutions to what Simon did. We see does layer, gets sledge, and then it looks like Brian is doing lefty sledges. I don't think I've seen that execution before, but yeah, that's definitely nice to see. I mean, 2-6, like you said, great to see him kind of come back from that counting 4 on those first 2 solves.
Simon practicing clock in the meantime. Now he gets his 4th scramble here in Skube Finals. Simon with very respectable times thus far in Skube Finals. A 228, 145, and a 272. Solve number 4, a 148. Another just below 1.5 seconds for Simon. What a solve.
Yeah. I mean, this one looked crazy. It seemed like 2 moves to double sledge, something along those lines. And we see Brian here, 185 off stream, but 185 on that same solution. It seemed like, good times from both these competitors. I mean, Brian's not happy with that counting 4, but at least he's got that 2-6 already counting in there. I mean, you can make something out of that. But seems like those second and 4th scrambles very, very clean right now.
Absolutely. Simon's best possible average, 174, WPA of 216. And now Brian Johnson with that 185 off stream, his best possible at 295 and worst possible of 458. So a wide margin in between averages for Brian Johnson.
Yeah, and high variance is never what you want to see. You don't want too much pressure on yourself going into Solve 5, needing to perform. You'd much rather have that cushion of some solid, decent times, and then you can at least make the best out of them. Whereas now you're on the back foot. You need to get something going this last one, or else the average is not going to play out how you want.
Simon with his 5th and final scramble in Skube Finals. Taking a little bit of inspection time. Sets it down. Here he goes. Lots of big pauses throughout this 5th and final solve as he smiles this one off. A 740 for Simon Kellum. That time will not count, but he locks, although he does lock in worst possible average, a great showing from Simon.
Yeah, you just chalk this up to him, just execution error, saw the solution. It seemed like he wasn't happy with the scramble initially either way, so if it was a good scramble with a large error, I think that would be a lot more unfortunate than just bad circumstances.
Brian Johnson for his 5th solve in Skube Finals, a 418 for Brian Johnson. So gets a 4 on his first solve, a 4 on his 5th and final solve. That's going to lock in an average of 373 for Brian Johnson.
Yeah, again, Scramble 5 just doesn't look that great. Seems like you want to get something better in those earlier solves where you have potential for those good solves on the easier scrambles.
And being told 2 things by production off stream, Elliot Perkins got a 153, so a great time there from Elliot Perkins. We're also told by production that we also have the replay on the potential table interference there on Brian Johnson's first solve where he had to get the provisional. Let's take a look.
I didn't realize either. I gave it to
Okay, this looks a lot more even, and then yeah, Judge bumps the table when he gets up to tap it, and then he says, "Well, looks like it's maybe a little different there."
Yeah, that
Yeah, it
comes
seems like
after the solve.
yeah, it seems like on the initial first Judge trying to look at the time or look at the cube, he maybe bumped the table and then interfered with the state of it, which like I said, is never anything you want to happen. It's an unfortunate circumstance of the way competitions are run currently, and there's no good way to deal with that. You can't rule on it accurately, and the best you can do is give someone a scramble that no one else in that round is going to get. And that inherently either puts you at an advantage or a disadvantage, right? Maybe you did really good on an easy scramble, and then you get penalized for that because something out of your control happens. And I think that's, me personally, that's something I want to see addressed and maybe future ways that we hold competitions. It's just very difficult to do that at the current moment.
Tough situation so far in this Skube finals for Brian Johnson. A little bit of table interference, thus we continue on. The next group of Skube is being, well, I should say it would be, now Dylan, in this situation, it would also be, would there be another group of Skube, or would we move right on to Clock? Because right after Pyraminx, it was just one different group.
Yeah, it should just be the one group. Sometimes you'll have two groups in finals if there's issues with not having enough adequate staffers. So if there's too many people who are unable to scramble the event, then they'll split the final into two groups to make sure that the competition can even run. And this does bring about some issues, right? They generally generate an extra set of scrambles in case of instances like this. And the thing you want to be doing if you split groups is to make sure that the people who have podium potential get the same scrambles. You want to put the fast people in the same group, but that also brings about troubles with making sure you have, generally, the people who can scramble are the fast people. So making sure you get an even split of that while the competition can still run is a little bit tricky. But either way, it seems like it's just the one group. It looks like we're on a clock now. We have Grayson James sitting down at his station off stream. See him there now.
Grayson James set to begin his finals of Clock. You go back to the second round, his very first solve, a 285 single. That is a new PR best for Grayson in that second round. So looking to replicate some of that success here in finals.
This is our third to last final of the day.
And off a stream, just practicing a 573 in Clock finals. Is now the groups are being called up for Clock finals. So it will just be one group of Skube finals. Now you move on to the finals of Clock. It's Clock finals, and then going forward you have 2x2 finals, and then the highly anticipated 3x3 finals coming up. In 2x2, Dylan, who are you looking to see out of that one?
I mean, of course, we have Brian. When he got his 118 official average, that was top 10 in the world. I'm pretty sure it was second in the world when he got it. So, you know, he's really looking to beat that. From my knowledge, he's very looking forward to beating that. As well, we have, I think the underdog is Matthias. Matthias is from the Southeast region, pretty close to where I'm located, and I know he's capable of very good things. At the Southeast Championship 2024, he got like a 0.7 single, counted like a sub 1. He's got very high potential in 2x2. I think he's an underrated solver. And then, of course, we have Luke Garrett. Luke's good at everything. I mean, he has a similar enough average to Brian. I think he gets sub 1 too. He's a very, very good solver. So, yeah, we shall see how it goes. I mean, Luke doesn't know as many algs as someone like Matthias or Brian. Luke, I think, to my knowledge, is only a EG solver, so that's just like the base method. So you build a layer or a face, and then you do an alg to solve the cube from there. There's more advanced alg sets that are being developed in 2x2, such as last slot, also known as LS, and then there's variations of these previously mentioned alg sets. So there's TCLL, which is CLL, which is just you build a layer, but you have a corner twisted, and then there's 2 subsets of TCLL. LS is where you have 3/4 of a layer, and then you solve everything with one corner not being solved. There's 9 subsets of LS, and then there's so many more algorithms being generated by the 2x2 solvers and the effort to eventually solve the 2x2 event entirely. We figured out that there's about only 150,000 combinations of 2x2 that are independent, and so trying to find an algorithm that is objectively optimal for every single one of those states has been the new path forward for the 2x2 event.
Grayson James will certainly be an eye to keep an eye on in clock finals. And you also look at a guy like Drew Wyndham as well in this final round of clock coming up here. And as you take a look at the second round, Drew Wyndham with a 281 PR single on his 5th and final solve to lock in an average of 458 in the second round of clock. So not a bad showing, and it's always fun to break a personal best while you're at it.
Yeah, most definitely. And slight correction here, I just wanted to say Drew is the one with the headphones on. Grayson is the one on the station being judged by Luke Griesser. We're about to see Drew do his solve right now as he's warming up right here, so just correction there.
All good. Drew Wyndham getting set for his first solve in the final round of clock. The third to last finals of Indiana Championships 2024. And looks like this one, the timer did not start for Drew on that first solve. So that would count as a DNF.
I'd be curious to see if that was a product of him not holding his hands on the timer, or if that was a timer malfunction. It seems like, from my perspective, that seems like long enough for the timer to start. I could be wrong on that, but I would be telling them to look at that timer potentially. Let's see. I mean, it looks like maybe he took it off a little bit early. That one's really close. We've been having issues with stack mat timers. They're notoriously unreliable. So, it's always, you always got to check to see if it's the equipment's fault or the solver's fault. It seems like in that instance, it was on Drew, unfortunately.
Grayson James off stream getting a 316 to start off his first solve in the clock finals.
I mean, yeah, that's a very good start from Grayson here. I mean, yeah, that seems really good. 316, when you're doing clock, you just want to see if you have any, especially on 7 simul, I'm pretty sure you just want to make sure that you have center clocks matching with your edge clocks. Those skips are really nice, and they can reduce your move count. Every clock can be solved in 7 simultaneous moves, but sometimes you can get lucky with 6 simul moves, 5 simul moves, and even 4 simuls happen. So clock very turning and scramble dependent.
It is, and it's a very interesting puzzle here in the WCA. Drew Wyndham now looking to go off of a DNF. Maybe hold the hands on the timer for an extra beat. Another quick start of the timer. This time it does go. A little bit of a slow solve drops the clock in the meantime, and a soft tap the timer. 6:39. So a tough one there for Drew.
Yeah, it seems like on both of these, he mismemorized his 7 simul execution, because you see on both of them, he had to look to the back of the clock. We see it's not all pointing at 12, and then he has to go fix it. Especially on clock, most people can deal with these DNF scenarios. Clock has the second highest DNF rate in WCA, right behind FMC. And so these solvers are well attuned to dealing with having to work off DNFs here, making sure that they're precise going forward. But just seems like he had another mistake in his memo there, costing him counting that 6.3.
That opens the door for Grayson James. Drew Wyndham immediately looking at a worst possible average of that DNF with the timer malfunction to begin with. Here goes Grayson for his second solve. A much better solve there. Judge takes a look. Griesser takes a look at the timer. A 297. Not a bad solve for Grayson.
Yeah, I mean, 297, this is a very good start from Grayson. This seems like he's on pretty good pace here, right? Worst case scenario, you're counting a 3-1. From my understanding, that's already on PR pace for him. I know he's a very big clock solver, so in your main event, you're hoping to get something good here. He's just nonchalant on his phone, maybe trying to calm himself down. We don't know.
Grayson James with a 285 PR single and a 330 PR average in clock. Now we turn our attention back to Drew. DNF his first solve and a 639 on his second solve. What can he produce in solve number 3? Few simul moves. Looks to be good. A 343 for Drew Wyndham. Good way to bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely more what he's looking to get here. 343. I mean, he seemed like he had a bit of a question there during memo. Had a bit of a pause looking back. But, decent execution. This is definitely much more of what he wanted. And you see, there's actually DNF here on that.
That is actually a DNF. We stand corrected.
Oh, man. This is the interesting
So Drew is going to have a DNF average in clock finals. And here you see Grayson James. He's shaking his head on this one. He might have possibly DNF'd himself on this one. No, they're going to count this one. 387 for Grayson.
Yeah, clock is just, it's a scramble dependent event. He seems like maybe he had some execution errors there. It seems like it's a good time. But even if it's not, he was only counting a 3-1 here. It's his fourth solve that's really going to set the tone for what's going to happen for his average. If he counts that 2-9, then he's on massive PR watch. Even if he gets like a 3-5, he's on PR watch. So, anything within his wheelhouse is possible for PR here.
Now here comes Drew. Had DNFs on his first and third solves in clock finals here thus far. Going for solve number 4. On this one, another slow solve for Drew as he leans back in his seat. Tosses the clock on that one. Pretty frustrated is Drew with a 971 on that one.
If I read his lips correctly, it seems like he said, "I'm throwing so hard," which is unfortunate. But clock is like the most volatile event in the WCA. Like I feel like every top level clocker gets mad at the event every 2 weeks because they have some unfortunate round. So I wouldn't be too worried about it if I was in his position. But definitely not what you want to see at this point. You just have to all out send it to get the good single.
Drew looking for that good single. Here comes Grayson for his fourth solve. Puts it down with a 304. Griesser gives it a check, says, yep, it is good. And a 304 for Grayson James on solve number 4.
Yeah, definitely. Huge PR watch here. I mean, it seems like just good execution on these last few moves. Really gets those done super quick. That nice, 5-tick turn. You really lose a lot of time on clock when you're doing those really... Max you can do is 6-click turns, and yeah, it seems like he got those done well enough, and he's on massive PR watch here, counting 3031. I think he can get anywhere from like a 35 maybe to even still get PR here, so that's really great to see from his perspective as Drew's about to do his 5th solve, hoping for a good single here.
That PR average for Grayson is at 330 right now, so a big PR watch is as best possible as 306. Now we turn to Drew for his 5th solve, just looking for a good single to put that DNF average out of his mind, a 397. And that one looks to be good, but a frustrating round of clock for Drew.
Yeah, it's like I said, clock is super volatile. Anyone who mains this event is well aware of this by now. It's unfortunate when these bad rounds happen, but if you accept it as part of the event, if you know you're going to main this event, then it should kind of lessen the blow there. And that scramble looked serviceable enough. I think if Grayson can execute decently on this, we could see a PR.
Grayson is on PR watch. That average at 330. His best possible at 306. Worst at 336. Here he goes. Fifth and final solve looks to be good. A 290 single on that one. That is going to lock in a PR average for Grayson James with a 306. What a job by Grayson James.
Wow. That is a very highly ranked average. You know, we talk about people getting PR, but when it's someone at a very high level getting PR, that is amazing to see. I'm not sure entirely what the world ranking is on that one, but I know that is a very, very well respectable world ranking, especially for someone getting a PR in their main event. I mean, you know, very close to sub 3 there. And then BPA on Solve 5, man, those always feel great, especially to clutch a PR. When you know you're on PR pace, those are the hardest moments to get those. So great to see from him.
What a job by Grayson James to lock in PR average on clock, now going from 330 to 306, locking in best possible average on his fifth and final solve. Just because if you look at the previous record of 330, that's 60th in the world right now, so maybe moving up a few slots there for Grayson James to get his rankings higher up in the world. But what a fantastic showing for Grayson James on the fifth and final solve of clock finals, Dylan.
I just checked world rankings. That is the this is the 9th best average in the world, 0.01 faster than the current OCR holder, there's 2 Laughlins from OCR, my apologies, but he is 9th in the world right now with the 306 average, 0.01 faster than tied 10th in the world, Laughlin and Alessandro. So wow, that's awesome to see from him. I mean, top 10 in the world in such a competitive event, an event that's rapidly moving in rankings. I mean, that you got to be happy to see that.
No doubt you got to be happy to see that, and no doubt Grayson is happy with that one. Now top 10 in the world for average in clock. An incredible achievement for him. We'll step aside really quickly, but from clock finals, we turn our attention to 2x2 finals, the penultimate finals before the highly anticipated 3x3. Don't go anywhere. From Evansville, Indiana, this is the Indiana Championships on Speedcubing TV.
Hey, we're Speedcube Shop. We are your one-stop shop for anything cubing or puzzle related and have something for everyone, beginner or pro. If you want the best of the best, allow us to lend you our years of experience and consider one of our premium setup speed cubes. Our team of experts will dial in your speed cube by applying lubricants and adjusting the settings so that when your cube arrives, you're ready to start crushing your PBs. Have any questions? Our team is available via phone, live chat, or email to help get you on track. Tap the link to find your next challenge or upgrade and enjoy what we and many others consider to be the best shopping experience around.
So where's everyone off to?
Bones, you're up next.
Bones is off chasing a good time, just like everyone else hopping on a Denago e-bike.
What about our game, bro?
Experience riding in a whole new way.
How new are we talking? Because I'm here for the exercise.
Well, there's a Denago bike for all levels. Increase the electric pedal assist to ride as casual as you want without breaking a sweat, or turn it down to make those legs burn. Go to Denago.com to check out our bikes and find your local Denago dealer.
Back here at Evansville, Indiana for Indiana Championships 2024. Michael Rosencrans, Dylan Miller with you on the call on Speedcubing TV. So glad you decided to spend your Sunday evening with us here on Speedcubing TV. Dylan, Grayson James getting that PR average in clock now at 306, and he's also going to be participating in the next round, 2x2 finals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure coming off of a big PR like that is it's very hard to gauge how you're going to go going forward, right? Sometimes you're on that adrenaline rush, and it's really hard to get back in the mindset of trying to compete well. Sometimes, you're on a hot streak. You're just going to keep getting PR. So we'll see how he does. I mean, he's a very competent 2x2 solver with like a 1-2 PR average currently. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. But I think what we're looking at most is Sujin Feist, top 3 in the world 2x2 solver, and Brian Johnson, how they will match up.
That'll be an interesting matchup indeed. We are just about set for 2x2 finals here at Evansville, Indiana. Just going into it, you have Sujin Feist and Brian Johnson going at it, and then you also have Luke Garrett and Matthias Marcantoni Nunez in the next group for 2x2 finals. And taking a look earlier, the podium consists of Sujin, Brian Johnson, Luke Garrett, and Grayson James sitting 1 through 4 in the second round of 2x2.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I was talking earlier about the objectively optimal approach to 2x2 that's going on, and Sujin is one of those people who is willing to learn all those algs. I mean, like we said, top 3 in the world, sub 1 official average currently. Sujin is definitely the person we're looking to maybe see pop today. His current PR average was potentially WR fail. I mean, he's on WR watch at this point. I mean, he's one of those solvers that knows all these algorithms, all these different subsets, and the undertaking of learning all of those is no small feat. It is very challenging to make sure your recognition's good. These top level solvers are recognizing like 5, 6, 7 different solutions, they're recognizing them from one angle, executing them from another. There's so much optimization in these very short sprint events that the margin for error is minuscule at this point.
Absolutely, it is minuscule because anything can happen in 2x2, and you see those averages on the right side of your screen in the second round. All of them very respectable times, sub 2 average. And with these top solvers, anything is possible here in 2x2 finals. First set of cubes are set down. And let us begin 2x2 finals, the penultimate round before 3x3 finals right after this one. But some great action for 2x2 coming up, and here we go. Taking a lot of inspection time on this first solve. Very quick, a 119. Not a bad start on the first solve.
Not a bad start at all, but you'll see, like I was saying, these margins for error are so small. That tiny lockup costs him maybe like 0.1 seconds. This is the difference between a 0.2 and a 0.1 solve here, or 1.1 to 1.2. And I know Sujin is maybe kicking himself for that tiny little lockup. Like I said, these margins for error are insanely tight.
Tough lockup for Sujin. Now here comes Brian Johnson. How can he respond to a 119 from Sujin? Taking a lot of inspection time himself. Puts that one down 148. Not a bad solve from Brian either, but again, it's those little minuscule moves that can really deter that time.
Yeah, I think the big differentiating factor here was just the solution. Brian also knows a large amount of algs compared to the average 2x2 solver, and he just couldn't find the solution that Sujin did. Like I said, Sujin is learning all of these multitudes of algs, and he just wasn't able to find what Sujin did, losing him a few extra moves. Even if his turning is perfect, he's just not gonna be able to make up that like 4 or 5 move difference in solution.
Sujin with a 0.58 PR single and a 0.94 PR average in 2x2. A very well-rounded solver in 2x2, one of the best in the nation. Here he goes for solve number 2. A little bit of a pause on that one, 163, so another tough one for Sujin that he's going to want back.
Yeah, I think this one we're gonna have to try to. Sujin's not gonna want to count this, but you see that big lockup there. He tries to cut that move a little too sharp, and then just causes a lockup. Cube doesn't want to get it done, so requires him to then have to do the move again, losing him some time. That solve with perfect execution is probably closer to a 1-3 than a 1-6. So unfortunate to see from him there.
We turn to Brian Johnson for his second solve. 1-5-2 on that one. Not a bad solve for Brian Johnson. Bit consistent right out of the gate.
Yeah, super consistent from Brian. Again, solution doesn't seem as efficient as Sujin, but his turning seems very clean on the solutions that he's been doing. We see here, he gets all these turns done very clean, very accurate, gets into this anti-soon EG, maybe CLL, and yeah, gets it done pretty well, that 1-5 there. So looking good from Brian so far.
Sujin has not received a cube yet, so a little bit of a pause in the action as of now in 2x2. And while we have a quick moment, we just want to say a quick thank you to our hardworking staff on production. Tyler Rose, Director of Production, here on site in Evansville, Indiana, as he gives a nice little wave to the front angle camera. We thank him so much for all his hard work going forward. Dan Marinick running replay, Matthew Marinick running graphics, John Epley, and the entire rest of the crew here at Speed Cubing TV. None of these broadcasts would be possible without their hard work and their commitment to spreading awareness to these speed cubing competitions. And these live streams have been incredible to be a part of.
Most definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm glad that this is happening. This is definitely going to help propel cubing forward. It wouldn't be possible without the staff here, so it's great to see them help out and be so helpful through and through.
It's all a group effort, and I'm just being told by one of our members of Speed Cubing TV, Matt Rosman, that John's not here. Hey, everybody gets their moment to shine, right?
Most definitely.
Just having a little difficulties with one of our top-down cameras at the moment right now. Those both look to be reset. Now they look to be going all right as of now. Both Sujin and Brian at 2 solves each. Still,
I will say as a competitor, I'm glad that the technical difficulties didn't affect the time to get the solves out. Maybe they were holding the cubes to see if technical difficulties occurred, but as a competitor, it can be maybe, we saw with the Luke 2 solved cubes thing, it can throw off your rhythm if there's anything that kind of messes with that.
Sujin going in for his third solve. 119 and a 163 for Sujin to begin 2x2 finals. What can he do on solve number 3? Lots of inspection time. Few really big lockups. A 344. Another tough solve for Sujin.
Yeah, it seems like he misrecognized here. Yeah, slight misrecognition. Gets stuck with this pie case. That's not what you want to see. That's an uncharacteristic mistake from Sujin. Counting that 1-6, definitely not happy with that. But, still that 1-1. I'm sure you can make something out of this average even with that 1-6 counting.
No doubt. Here's Brian Johnson now with solve number 3. Door opens a little bit with that counting 1-6-3 now for Sujin. Brian's been consistent so far. And consistent yet again with a 1-5-1.
Yeah, all of his solves being within a 0.04 time difference is pretty crazy at this point. But yeah, I mean, look, Brian just not doing anything crazy. He's super, standard solutions, good execution. Doesn't seem too pleased with that one, but I can't make out why that would be. Seems like he's solving pretty well to me at the moment. And he's counted officially that 151.
Yes, he did. That 151 just counting for Brian Johnson with that 152 on the second solve. Now we turn to Sujin for solve number 4. Off of a 344. How can he bounce back from here? Quick turning. Drops the cube, and it's a 217. Might have misrecognized on that one, and a tough one there for Sujin.
Yeah, it seems like he was prepping himself to do this solution. He had the solution perfectly fine, and then just indicative of maybe that other solve, slight cube drop. Unfortunate to see from him. Counting that 2-1 and 1-6. Definitely not pleased with that. Just some sloppy errors here. Seems like he was prepping himself in inspection to get ready to do that execution and then just couldn't follow through. That's, like I said, tight margins for error here in this 2x2 final.
Best possible at 166, worst possible at 241. Now you turn to Brian Johnson. Been consistent through his first 3 solves. What can he produce here on solve number 4? Bit of a lockup, a 144 though, gets out of the lockup. A great solve from Brian. That consistency is key, and he's looking at a 148 BPA.
Yeah, BPA and WPA for Brian doesn't even really matter at this point. Difference of 0.02 seconds. I mean, he's comfortably, his WPA is sub Sujin's BPA. Seems like he solved well on this one, and solution for that one seemed pretty short. I think that's how he got out of that lockup pretty all right.
Sujin set to begin his 5th and final solve here in 2x2 finals. Best possible average of 166. Bit of a lockup there, a 110 on that one. Frustrated there, but a really good single to end that slate of solving, and he's going to lock in BPA.
Yeah, big lockup here, but I mean, you can't be mad getting BPA here. It's unfortunate how solves 3 and 4 went down. Even solve 2, there's just some sloppy errors here, but it's all learning moments for Sujin here. I'm sure he's able to figure out what went wrong here and try to correct that going forward.
Here's Brian Johnson. Could he be looking to lock in a BPA of his own? Solve 5, a 0.78 single. Well done by Brian. That will certainly lock in 148 BPA. What a solve.
Yeah, seems like same solution as Sujin, just no big lockups here. Super clean turning as we've seen from Brian this whole round. Just no lockups, super crisp. And yeah, clutching that 148 BPA with a sub 1 single to boot. So, I mean, you know, for the average that's really consistent, capping it off with a great, very clearly sub 1 single there, gotta feel good.
Absolutely, it does have to feel good. And just looking at some other results off stream, just some big numbers to look out for. Matthias on his 4th solve getting a 0.96, so another sub 1 single for Matthias in 2x2. He certainly got a feel good going out of that. Zeke Mackey on his 2nd solve with a 349, but all of his remaining solves, solve 1 at 183, solve 3 at 155, solve 4 at 143, solve 5, 176, so pretty consistent from Zeke Mackey there in his slate of 2x2 finals.
Yeah, and going back to Matthias, it seems like he just won the competition with a counting. We see he got that sub 1 on solve 4, but counting 111, 138, and 154. That's very comfortably a sub 1.4 official average, looking more like a 1.3 average. So that's great to see from him. Likely the winner of this competition. I don't see any other results that seem to be sub that. So congrats to Matthias for that, and that would mean that we get Luke Garrett so far at 2nd place. We'll get Brian in at 148. Seems like Sujin unfortunately is kicked off of this podium. It'll be looking like a Matthias, Brian, and Luke podium in that order.
That average of 134 worth noting, that is a PR average as well for Matthias. So not only does he win the competition, he gets a PR average to go with it. So great feeling for Matthias winning in 2x2. Seemed to be well ahead of the competition going into it. And more results are starting to come in to the projected live ranking, as you see at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Luke Garrett in 2nd, Sujin in 3rd, Zeke Mackey right now sitting in 4th place, Simon Kellum all the way down to 6th, Langendorfer in 7th, and Grayson James rounding out in 8th on the live ranking.
I would be curious to see how Matthias did on that solve 5. Going into solve 5, counting that 1-1-1-5, we've seen that Brian was able to get a sub 0.8 on that 5th scramble. Potentially, Matthias could be slightly upset with how that last solve went, 138. We saw even Sujin doing his solution there with the big lockup. He's still getting a 1-1, so Potentially Matthias not happy with how that last solve went, but you can't be upset with the PR regardless.
No doubt. Now as we take a look at the updated results of 2x2 finals, Matthias sitting comfortably in first with that 134 average. Brian Johnson locks up BPA of his own with that .78 single. He sits at 148. Comfortably in second. Luke Garrett in third with a 165 average. Sujin barely losing to Luke Garrett in that average with a 166 average. So Luke Garrett edges out the podium by 0.01 seconds. So a tough feeling for Sujin being knocked off of a podium, but a 166 average is still very respectable.
Yeah, and like we said, Sujin made the best out of what he had, counting 2 in his average, but he still clutches with a 1-1 to get BPA. Like, he did everything in his power he could going into solve 5, and just Luke happened to get a slightly better average in the first 4 solves.
Rounding out the podium, Zeke Mackey in 5th with a 171 average. Braxton sitting in 6th place with a 175 average on that one. And going down 7th and 8th, Simon Kellum with a 216 average, and Mason Langendorfer sitting at a 252 average. We will step aside for now, but coming right up after the break, 3x3 finals. Luke Griesser off of stream, practicing already. Folks, grab a bowl of popcorn, get your favorite drink, because you won't want to miss 3x3 finals coming up in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. This is Indiana Championships 2024 on Speed Cubing TV.
Cubing Life Academy aims to support the next generation of cubers through professional courses and coaching, as well as top cubers by fairly compensating them for sharing their skills. Use code SpeedCubingTV for 5% off any purchases at Cubing Life Academy.
This is Soup Timmy here with the new Max Park Cuber from Rubik. This is a limited edition cube. Believe me, supplies are very, very limited. And Max is donating 100% of proceeds to nonprofit autism support groups. This cube is exclusively only on Amazon using the link below. This is a great cube to add to your collection, and you'll be help supporting autism awareness. Thank you for your support.
Back here at Evansville, Indiana, Indiana Championships 2024 here in the Old National Events Plaza. Michael Rosencrans, Dylan Miller with you on the call on Speed Cubing TV. We want to thank you so much for spending your Sunday evening with us to watch this highly anticipated Luke v. Luke rivalry coming up. Dylan, it's 3x3 finals are upon us right now, and off of camera as it is right now, Luke Griesser getting himself prepared. You talk about his mental game going into it, into 3x3 finals. This is what he practices for, and you see him practicing right here on his solves, wearing those headphones. He doesn't want any noise right now and just focusing on his own game. And going into it, it's all a mental game going forward for Luke Griesser. How does he edge out the win here in 3x3 finals?
Well, I think Griesser, going off of his previous round average, needs to clean up some of his execution errors, and he needs to clean up his ZB recog. If he can recognize his AUGs well, get ZBs more consistently, and make sure he's turning fluidly, I think that's his recipe for success. Like we've discussed before, anytime you mention Luke v. Luke, you have to talk about the fact that Garrett is able to do color-neutral solves, and Griesser is limited to only white-yellow. So if white, yellow are bad, he needs to take advantage of those and be as creative as possible to give himself the best continuations he can. And if Luke Garrett, he needs to just get himself to turn well and not pause, just solve like Luke. We saw in that last round he had a few sloppy moments here and there. He was on good paces, had some lockups. like we talked about before, Griesser is up 3-0 on Speedcubing TV live streams, so maybe that's in the back of his head. We don't really know, but it'll be interesting to see. I think if white and yellow are really good, I think you have to give the edge to Griesser there. Just because he's more attuned to those, he's able to see deeper in inspection. Garrett relies more on his on-the-fly solutions and solving, and just being super solid. So we just hope from both of these solvers that they turn accurately and solve efficiently, and that will be their recipe for success.
And my mistake here, folks, this might be one more group of 2x2 coming up right now. So not quite yet 3x3 finals, but Luke Garrett was one of the people to watch out for in this next group of 2x2. So it looks like there's one more group of 2x2 going at it. We'll see here. No, looks like Luke is going to just be practicing right now on 3x3. No, it is his first solve of 3x3 finals. So here we go. Luke Garrett starting off with a 650, so a little bit of a slower solve, but
yeah, I mean, he set up a pretty decent first pair here. We see on this replay. He's going for yellow, which is a good sign for Griesser. Gets a free pair into this back right. Nice F move solution there. Slightly unnecessary. Y2 unnecessary. Sets up a free pair for last slot. And then he gets this really nice solved CP for his OLL. The main issue here is that Z-perm execution definitely could have been a little bit cleaner. Normally when you're on that pace going into Z-perm, you'd hope for like a 6-2, 6-3, 6-5. We saw that little lockup there, so definitely something that we want to have cleaned up going forward.
now here's Luke Griesser. Luke Garrett starting off with a 6-5-0. Another chapter of the Luke v. Luke rivalry. Griesser had to edge out Luke on his last solve at Swoopin' and Solve Oxford 3 weeks ago. What can he do here? Griesser starting with his first solve. Pretty smooth turning out of the gate. And a miss recognition there. An 808. A tough start for Luke Griesser.
I will say, from solution-based, I like the way that Griesser approached the scramble a lot better. Solving this pair in front left seems really clean. Gets the EO here, lefty soon, and then he's on good pace for this G-perm, just locks up and then loses the cube, goes into his lap. I mean, you don't really love to see that from him. I mean, both of these solvers, uncharacteristic starts, but you know, taking the silver lining out of both of these solves, they were on good pace. It was just the ending that they kind of had some mistakes on, especially Griesser. That 8 was not necessarily a product of any of his F2L problems, so he should feel fine going into the next solves, but you definitely have your back against the wall with that 8 to start.
No doubt. Luke Garrett gearing up for his second solve. Door opens a little bit more after that 808 single by Luke Griesser. Luke Garrett, the native of Indiana, looking to edge out a win on homeland in 3x3 finals. And here he goes with solve number 2. A little bit of a pause there going into last layer. A 623, a head shake at that one. So another solve just over 6 seconds for Luke Garrett.
I don't think Luke can be too mad at this solve. I mean, he executes everything fine enough. There's only this one big lockup here in F2L. Doesn't get rewarded with the best OLL PLL. I mean, he's doing back soon for rough in the GC perm. Like, this is not great from him. But decent enough turning to still get a 6-2. Not with the best cases either. And we saw on that one, particularly, he did not do white-yellow. So this could mean white-yellow or not great for Griesser, or Luke just saw something he liked better.
Luke Garrett getting a 623 on the second solve. What can Griesser do here on his second solve? Remember, he's a yellow and white solver only. Looking for either one of those options. Really big pause there. Still gets a 592, so a sub 6 second single. That's more like the Luke Griesser that we know.
one of my main things I talk about with Griesser is I don't think his turning is up there with like most of the other solvers, but these first two pairs, a lot of moves, but gets them done quick. And this big pause here is this ZB recog, which, like I said, one of the main points of emphasis for Griesser if he wants to win this matchup. We see here that anti-soon Alg specifically has a very large block. And that in that case, him doing ZB was probably a little bit faster than doing OLL PLL, which is always great to see, especially on those soon anti-soon cases where the benefit of doing ZB is very minor compared to just doing OLL PLL, but he makes it work there.
You don't want to count that 808 second single for Luke Griesser, and he follows that up with a 592. Now here's Luke Garrett on solve number 3. Taking a lot of inspection time. Here he goes. Turning very fluid out of the gate. Bit of a pause. A 512. There's a good solve for Luke Garrett. Way to bounce back with a sub 6 second single.
Yeah, so it seems like here, just pretty clean. He also went for white here, and I saw it looked like he had 2 free pairs on his last 2. So, yeah, very easy. Sexy sledge, and then nice PLL there. So, I mean, this could mean good news for Griesser. I mean, if Garrett has done white/yellow on his last 2 out of 3 solves, so potentially white/yellow are good here. Maybe Griesser's going to like what he sees, and maybe if he does the same continuation as Garrett, he's on pace to potentially get a nice little single like that too.
No doubt. Luke Griesser going to be paying attention to yellow and white. Lots of different blocks on this scramble. And here goes Griesser for solve number 3. Turning still very smooth. Little bit of a lockup there. 7-10. Luke Griesser frustrated after that one.
Yeah, decent start here. I mean, slight pause, but then fluid all the way through, does that fat F, does it fine, gets this nice free pair here, and then I guess for this OLL, he's doing EOZB nowadays. I personally don't find it viable here, and he does that into a LZB. Seems like he recognized it fine enough, but then just couldn't really get the execution down, and he's quite displeased with himself on that one. I mean, you know, you could just do standard OLL, PLL, get decent continuation there, but seems like he didn't really get to follow through as well as he would have hoped.
So as of now, he is counting that 7-10 single right now. That 808 is his worst time. 592 is his best. Griesser is going to be looking for something good here on this 4th solve, as will Luke Garrett. Tyler Rose, our director of production, fixing the top-down camera for you all to see at home. That is fixed, and Luke Garrett is good to go for solve number 4. With that 512 single in solve 3, the door opening a little bit more after that 710 single by Luke Griesser. Here's Garrett inspecting solve number 4. Couple different blocks in blue. And here he goes for solve number 4. Very quick turning out of the gate. Pause there. Goes for the M-perm. Set 579. A good solve there for Luke Garrett. And he's well on pace.
Yeah, I mean, green here looked crazy. You saw Luke kind of have a visible reaction to it. Gets this dot case into OLL. Good S-move execution into Z-perm here. Definitely fine, but I mean, wow, green just looks so jarring there. I mean, especially for a CN solver, that's all your attention is drawn to. You see a cross that's essentially just U-perm away from being solved. Like, that's definitely taking your attention, and I don't know how Garrett managed to deal with it, but the blocks came together all the same. So, sub 5.8, he's on good pace.
Best possible, it's 5.71 for Luke Garrett. Worst possible, it's 6.17. Here goes Luke Griesser with solve number 4. Yellow and white only. So he'll be looking for something here. Bit of a pause going in to that solve. Pretty fluid turning afterwards. A 6.56 on that solve for Luke Griesser. So his best possible average is going to be sitting at 653, worst possible 725.
Look, I don't think Griesser can be too mad with this solution. One thing I will say is he could have gotten EO on this last pair if he did it slightly differently. If you rotate Effenberg Sexy F prime, U prime Sledge, you get EO there, especially for a ZB solver like Griesser. That would have been very useful there. His his F2L OLO transition was great there. The big point of contention was his first pair to second pair transition. I noticed that he does that wide F insert a lot, at least in this competition. And one thing I noticed is that it's very hard to look ahead into that going forward. So potentially Griesser could look at that as a point of emphasis later.
Luke Garrett on his fifth and final solve. Could he potentially lock in BPA? Very fast turning out of the gate. Still going a 572 for Luke Garrett. What a way to finish his round of 3x3 finals with a 591 average.
Yeah, I mean, this is just classic Luke Garrett. Standard cross, little bit of an unnecessary rotation there. Could have also gotten EO on this one if he rotated, but, comes together all the same. Does the R-perm. Nice little right index F prime finger trick there to get that R-perm done. 572. I'm sure he's happy with that sub-6 average.
591 average for Luke Garrett. Here's Luke Griesser on his fifth and final solve in 3x3 finals. Really fast turning out of the gate. It's still going on the last layer, a 579. So a good final solve for Luke Griesser in that one. But Luke Garrett edges out Luke Griesser in this one as Griesser locks in a 653 average here at Indiana Championships.
One thing I want to note is that Griesser has said he's, at least in the cubicle interview, that he's been doing a lot more wide U stuff in cross, and I really like the applications of it that he did in this one here. So good to see him practicing what he preaches, So, I mean, that worked out well for him, clutching BPA there, especially with like a more dubious execution in cross, and your start as a whole is good to see. Just super solid all around. Like, I think Griesser's still on PR watch. He's been in super solid form all around. These last two rounds haven't been the greatest showing from him, but I think he's definitely still within his capability to get sub 551, that ever-looming number over him going forward.
Absolutely not a bad showing from both Luke G's here in Indiana Championships 2024. Luke Garrett right now sitting in first place currently with a 591 average. Luke Griesser with a 653. Zeke Mackey as of right now in third place with a 710 average. So not a bad showing from Zeke either. He's more so around that 6 to 7 second average range going into things for him. But not a bad showing for the native of Wisconsin.
Curious to see how Brian did on these scrambles. Brian also a color-neutral solver who typically biases white-yellow. So white-yellow seemed fine enough on these. I think Garrett did it on 2 out of 3, maybe 3 out of 5. Or 2 out of 5, maybe 3 out of 5. But seems like this was all fine from him. But, I mean, 6-5 is well within Brian's wheelhouse to beat Griesser there. So I'd be curious to see how that ends up coming out.
That'll be interesting to see how it ends up playing out as more live rankings are coming in to the bottom left hand of your screen. Currently, it's Luke Garrett, Luke Griesser, Zeke Mackey, and then you also have me here sitting in fourth place right now, Matthias in fifth place, and as more rankings are starting to come in, you can see the top 8, Amigaba, Evan Brown, and most of those rankings continue to be shaken up here as now Simon slots into the 6th place as of right now in 3x3 with an average of 8 flat going into that. So there is a look at your podium right now for 3x3 finals, and most of the results are continuing to be tallied in right now, but as it appears to be right now, Luke Garrett will defend homeland and win his first competition in 3 over Luke Griesser. So Luke Griesser, certainly not a bad showing for him, but Luke Garrett gets redemption after those 3 competitions on Speed Cubing TV. He wins on home turf. That's got to be a good feeling for him.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like we said, Garrett was pretty comfortably going to be the Indiana champion 3x3, but also being the overall winner to then get Indiana champ, that's definitely feels a lot better, right? And we see Brian here getting 647 in second place, and Griesser knocked off podium by 0.01. Oh, sorry, this is last round. Whew. I was a little confused. Yeah, we see there. So we're waiting for Brian to get input here, but I think that's going to be the main differentiator there, whether or not Brian knocks Griesser to third, and Brian also very comfortably could knock Zeke off of third. Oh, Brian 729 for fourth place. My apologies. So not ideal from him, but yeah, definitely good to see that Garrett defended home territory, got the dub pretty comfortably as well. Like we said, last time Garrett beat Griesser in a final was at Great Lakes Championships 2024. He beat him by a margin of 0.05, if I recall correctly, maybe 0.03. And yeah, so winning by a comfortable margin, 0.6, that's good to see, especially with that good solve on solve 5. Griesser just had some execution errors, some sloppy mistakes, starting off on that bad foot with that 8-second solve with the cube drop. Doesn't put you in a good position. So honestly, I wouldn't be too mad with the 6-3, all things considered. Clutching BPA, can't be too mad about it.
Can't be too mad about it, and it's more repetitions as they prepare for Worlds in July of 2025. All events have wrapped up here at Indiana Championships 2024, and that will just about do it for our coverage of Indiana Championships 2024. We want to thank you so much for tuning in to Speed Cubing TV to watch this presentation of Indiana Championships 2024. For our entire crew of Speed Cubing TV by Happy Feet Productions, for Dylan Miller, I'm Michael Rosencrans saying so long and have a wonderful night, everybody.